Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents The Sports Cage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Be part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The Sports Cage. Streaming at sportscage.com, our YouTube channel, and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Good Monday afternoon, Saskatchewan. This is Brendan McGuire and Curtis Gammon coming at you. We got the keys to the Ferrari today. Dave and Teagan are both sick. Got a call earlier today from Teagan. Brendan, I have heat stroke. So Curtis and I are going to look after things here, hold down the fort, see if we don't drive the Ferrari into the ditch. This edition of the Sports Cage is for Kellen Solar. 35 years of experience moving water from a dugout or well without electricity. Visit kellensolar.com to find out more for your livestock operation. Coming up on this edition of the program, riders, and more riders. We're going to play some of the post-game from the victory over the Ottawa Red Blacks on Friday. Also check in with rider assistant coach Andrew Harris on the Coaches Show in Hour 2. We will also check in with Double Talk and Darian Durant. Before the episode is out, we are also going to have this week's Regina Red Sox Report. The great Dante DeCaria. Seems like Dante's always on whenever I come in. Will give us the latest on the Regina Red Sox. I think I want to ask him what is going on with these Energy City Cactus Rats and their ballpark. Some of the silliness up there where the team is announcing, hey, we're going to get an occupancy permit. We're going to have people in the stadium. And then the league president saying, well, to be clear, there will be people on the field and nobody in the stand. So it seems kind of goofy that the organization isn't really being upfront with people about who can go, who can't go. And it seems like a land development gone wrong where maybe some people have run out of money. Who knows? You can chime in on the discussion. Call us toll-free at 1-866-767-0620. And you can always text us as well at 306-936-6262. The Prairie Land Rentals and Sales text line since 1986. Big for big or small jobs. Stop in and deal with the owner, 600 Albert Street. Snowblowers, skid steers, power sources, moving equipment. And it's all there. So the Saskatchewan Roughriders come away with the victory over the Ottawa Red Blacks, 27-22 on Friday Night Football, a game that was heard right here on 620 CKRM. And Curtis, I was just counting here. I know TSN kept showing the graphic over and over. You know what's kind of funny about CFL? If you're going to be a CFL researcher, you have to be a real researcher. It's not like the NHL or MLB, you just hit Google AI and it all pops up for you. There's a lot of CFL stuff that it makes mistakes or you have to go through and manually count. Mm-hmm. How many quarterbacks did they say since Trevor Harris with Ottawa?
Let me manually count.
I think I counted 13.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is correct.
From Dominic Davis, Jonathan Jennings. I don't even remember. Oh, I guess he played with BC before that. I remember him. Will Arndt. I barely remember him. Matt Nichols. Oh, you got the list right there.
There you go.
And Drew Brown, Dustin Crum, Caleb Evans, Devlin Duck Hodges, Jake Mayer, Jeremiah Mazzoli, Matt Nichols. I think I said Nichols twice. And Matthew Schiltz. It kind of reminds me of the laundry list that the Saskatchewan Roughriders had between Ron Lancaster and Tom Burgess / Kent Austin. So I'm going to say between 1979 and 1986, there was an 8-year gap where it was a real wasteland around here for quarterbacks. Well, that's kind of what's happening with the Ottawa Red Blacks because this is year number... Technically, it's year number 7 without them because they didn't play in the 2020 season. But somebody, I think, needs to go down to the stadium, and whether it's in this week or later in the season when they're getting set to face the Red Blacks in the rematch, and point out to Mr. Trevor Harris that, hey, we all have fantasies of being irreplaceable at our jobs. We like to think that if our employer wrongs us, either treats us wrong or doesn't give us that raise that we're looking for, that this whole place will fall apart without us. Sadly, the reality often does not quite match that fantasy. Most places, whether it's a football team, an office, or anywhere else, will function just fine without you or me. Trevor Harris has experienced something very different. And I wonder what it is like to look over and see an ex-employer really struggling. It's kind of like if you have that ex-girlfriend or boyfriend and you see that their life goes right down the tubes after you leave. What does that feel like? I'd be curious to hear his response. I don't know that he's going to be real honest about it, but I think he would look, if he tells you that he doesn't care about that, he's not paying any attention, he's probably being a little bit less than honest. I'm sure he watches that situation with a little bit of curiosity.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel like it would probably be bittersweet in the sense that, like, Harris didn't necessarily want to leave Ottawa. He ended up leaving because they didn't want to pay him. It's basically what it came down to. They didn't want to give him a bonus, right? And then to see what they've done since he's left is just like the cherry on top, It's like, obviously, they haven't been able to find their next franchise guy. I mean, the record is just terrible. 27-80-1 since Trevor Harris left. Like, you got to be...
I'm pretty sure that's the worst in the Canadian Football League and probably one of the worst in pro football. You know who they remind me of? I'm a little older than you, so you won't maybe appreciate this as much. Mm-hmm. I grew up I'm a child of the 90s, and Ottawa's football in the late 80s and the 90s was dreadful. And so eventually they folded up. And I remember the narrative in this very building. Jeff Currier used to come on all the time and say, Ottawa's a good football town. It's just run so poorly that the fan base is not buying in. So eventually it crashed. And then they come back as the Renegades, and that was run a little bit flimsy. That crashed. And the idea of the Red Blacks is, okay, we're not going to crash this time. This is run the proper way. And it is. They are very well run. They make those previous incarnations off the field look like a three-ring circus. But they had a bit of early success. 2014, 15, 16. I guess you could say even 17 they were pretty good after Henry retired. Mm-hmm. And 18, the first 5 years of their existence was pretty good. And it felt like they exercised all these demons, winning their first Grey Cup in 40 years. But ever since Trevor Harris left, it feels like they have morphed back into what the end of Ottawa Roughriders, Ottawa Renegades were. And you're seeing it in the crowds. We had their radio broadcaster. I know AJ Yakubek has been on this program many times, former Melfort Mustang radio broadcaster. He does the Red Black broadcasts on, some Ottawa station. Look it up. But he says that the story about how Trevor Harris left is not as clear-cut as we all think it is. The official word at the time, at least what was reported, was that it was a disagreement over something like $50,000 during the negotiation. And
that signing bonus, right?
And allegedly, Marcel Desjardins called him or his agent, and Marcel was the GM of Ottawa at the time, to say, I don't think anything's going to happen, so thanks for everything. Good luck with everything. And he ended up signing in Edmonton. So there's two more layers to that. Number one, life did not always go great for Trevor after leaving Ottawa either. I think he put up pretty good numbers, but they missed the playoffs in 2019 in Edmonton. Pandemic comes, and 21 was dreadful for everybody involved with the Elks. Trevor was kind of in exile for a while. A lot of people forget that. He gets moved to Montreal. He's with the Alouettes. And it's clear pretty early that Danny Machocha wants him and not Vernon Adams Jr., and I think that was a bit of a controversial choice. And I think it's paid off in the long run. I don't know. If you put Trevor beside VA, I would say Trevor's a better quarterback. But Trevor's also probably a little closer to the end than VA is. So I don't know. I think that's an open...
Sounds like VA's been in a few controversial quarterback moves, yeah.
Well, I think Vernon Adams Jr. is the most underappreciated... one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks in pro football.
Oh, he had a really crazy stat that I was quite enjoying the other day. So before that game that he popped off for 6 TDs, passing TDs, 1 rushing TD.
The win over Toronto last week, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had, he went for 7 games, 178 consecutive passes without an interception. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a really crazy stat. And he's just added to that too. So,
and he's a bit of a gunslinger, so you would expect him to have
exactly
a few picks along the way.
That's always kind of the big thing about VA is like, yeah, he does the big plays, but also big turnovers here and there. So when I did initially hear that he went for like 7 games, 178 pass attempts without a pick, it's like, that's crazy. Is he just playing more disciplined ball, or is just Calgary that good and we're just not noticing, you know?
I think he's probably ironed out a lot of the kinks that were in his game. Remember, I think his biggest downfall was probably the fact that he kept moving. He's been with so many teams, and when he was new in the league, people forget that it was here in Saskatchewan where Chris Jones fell in love with the guy and acquired him and brought him to Saskatchewan. And at the time, a lot of us had no idea what he saw in Vernon Adams Jr., and we were... I say we because I like to take ownership of this as well. We're very critical of Chris Jones when he was here over his inability to find a quarterback, right? Or one that worked. And yet you look at some of his decisions in hindsight. Wanting to acquire Zach Collaros was not a bad decision. Wanting to acquire Vernon Adams Jr. was not a bad decision. The timing and other factors just didn't work out here. I think that Chris Jones did a lot of things much worse than making those two choices during his time with Saskatchewan. I can't wait. I really hope I get to interview him someday, and I just want to ask him the question. I'm talking about Chris Jones. I'm getting a little off topic.
Okay.
I want to ask him, do you ever wish you had never left Saskatchewan? Think of how drastically his professional life has gone downhill since he left Regina. He was making crazy amounts of money, and then I know that the operations cap came in and probably tamed that down a little bit, but he had a sweetheart deal here, and he announced he was coming back for 2019, then he announced he wasn't coming back for 2019. And since then, he hasn't really had success anywhere, right? They had the one bad year in Cleveland. The coach who hired him gets fired. Then they reassign / demote him. And then from there, he's coaching this high school team in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. And then some of their games were getting canceled because of COVID. So he walked out on them halfway through the season to come back to Canada. So now he's alienated all of them, the people who loved him in his hometown. And then he gets the job in Edmonton, and now it's like he totally washed out his own legacy because he was sort of I don't want to say mythical, but a somewhat legendary figure in Edmonton because they had 2 great years. They won their last Grey Cup, and he almost canceled it out with those 3 bad years that he had, better part of 3 years. They just struggled. They were dreadful to watch, and since then, it just seems like he's bouncing around and nowhere better. And I can promise you, he does not financially or as far as control or status, he does not have it better where he is today than he did when he was still here in Saskatchewan. I truly wonder, it's hard to blame somebody for wanting to go try the NFL and get their foot in the door, which he had an opportunity to do. But I do wonder if maybe that was his biggest mistake.
You're loading up with some really good questions. You got a good one for Trevor Harris. You got a good one for Chris Jones.
Nobody who's on the show today, but they're good questions nonetheless. But sorry, I'll get back to getting back to Vernon Adams. I think.
Speaking of Vernon Adams, I got the stat here. He's now
lay it on me. Let's go.
203 pass attempts without a pick, 8 games.
So do we know if that's a record?
That's actually a good question. That's a third good question, Brendan. You're on fire.
Google AI, and if no NFL quarterback has done it, it'll show us, and we'll just assume it's a record. But that's pretty. I didn't know that stat. But with I think the turning point for Vernon Adams Jr., who we always knew was a pretty good runner, but didn't know much about him as a passer, came when he joined the Montreal Alouettes.
The guy that has the record. We're talking to him today. CFL record is Darian Durant with 323 pass attempts without throwing a pick.
Without throwing a pick. Interesting. Well, we'll have to ask him about Vernon Adams, or if he remembers Vernon Adams coming into the league. They would have had very brief overlap.
Do you know who number 2 is?
On the list?
Yeah.
I have a feeling you're going to tell me.
Ricky Ray. Ricky Ray went for 247 consecutive attempts.
Okay, so VA is number 3?
VA would probably be number 3 now.
Okay, on the list. Interesting. But I think the turning point for Vernon Adams was when he went to Montreal and they had Johnny Manziel at the time, who was making a bit of a clown show out of the league. Or not so much out of the league, but out of Montreal for sure. And he was struggling mightily. And then when they put in VA, the team played better. So then almost overnight, Manziel leaves, and then VA comes in, and the Alouettes are better, like right away. And that's when you knew. You knew at that time that he kept his mouth shut. He just went about his business and took over the Alouettes and made them better. That's why when Danny Machocha fired Kahari Jones and replaced him with himself and eventually Jason Moss, he also replaced Vernon Adams with Trevor Harris. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the decision then, but I think it's worked out pretty good in the long run for Montreal. It was a very gutsy call by Machocha to do all that. So he decided in that moment he would rather have Trevor Harris. That's really the only time they've gone head-to-head. We might get a better look at it later this season if they hook up in the playoffs. It's not like next year where everybody gets in the playoffs and everybody plays everybody in the playoffs just about. So some dominoes will have to fall certain ways. But we might get a pretty good Western final matchup between Saskatchewan and Calgary, even a Western semifinal, and that would be a game worth watching for sure. We should probably take a break. Don't forget to call us at 1-866-767-0620 or on the Prairie Land Rentals and Sales text line at 306-936-6262. We're going to hear more from the Saskatchewan Roughriders when we come back. You are listening to the Sports Cage on 620 CKRM and watching at sportscage.com. Sports Cage carrying on this Monday for Kelton Solar, Brendan McGuire, and Curtis Gammon. Still ahead on this edition of the show. We will check in with Saskatchewan Roughrider assistant coach Andrew Harris. I want to ask him a little bit about junior football. He used to rule the roost with the Vancouver Island Raiders, and a story out of Prince George, see if he has any thoughts on that. And also, I want to talk to him about AJ Ouellette and the difference in how the Roughrider offense functions when he's in the lineup and when he's not. We had a crazy stat that was up. Sorry, I'm just quickly looking it up. When when he's in the lineup as opposed to when he's not in the lineup. So now with the victory over Ottawa, their record without AJ Ouellette, this includes playoffs and Grey Cup, and this goes back to his first year with the team, is 4-7-1. Sorry. Yeah, 4-7-1 when he's not in the lineup. When he's in the lineup, they're 23-8. Now that's partly because a lot of those games where he was out, they were without Trevor Harris as well. But it's still a staggering statistic nonetheless. And in the loss to Toronto, the guy who I do the TV show with on Tuesday nights, Access Now Sports,
nice plug.
With Marshall Hamilton. He's pointed out he thought that Harris, even though they didn't give up any more sacks, was not an abnormal day as far as surrendering sacks. They only gave up the 2. He got pressured a lot and he got hit a lot. So that made a big difference. And if you just look at the box score, you would say Quali Conley had a good day running the football, and he did. Stats-wise, he scored the touchdown. I'm talking about the Toronto game. Mm-hmm. But having a new guy in there, you probably don't have the same level of blocking. In fact, you don't have the same level of blocking as you would with an AJ Ouellette. And I suspect that AJ is probably one of the top 5 blocking running backs in the Canadian Football League. It's what he does away from the box score and away from the play that makes him who he is and why he's such a difference maker for that offense. And so often we just rely on the stats. That's something the stats will not tell you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Even like that, the final touchdown in that BC game, you could see like the crazy block that AJ Ouellette made, and he was like flipping the rusher, just like woof, head over heels, completely 90-degree inverted. And there's the crazy blocks like that, and then of course all the other ones that he does, and it's one of those things that doesn't necessarily pop up on the stat sheet, but does make a huge difference. Like you could even say the same thing about a receiver like Samuel Emelis. Like when he's not receiving the ball, he's going and he's making those blocks. So guys like that.
Mauling guys downfield, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's why this offense could open things up. Like, this is a copycat league, and I'm not a big fan of the way a lot of these offenses have become so heavily reliant on the short passing game. And I know the Riders are built that way, but I think the difference here is they have receivers like Emilus who can maul guys downfield. So if they're getting 7-8 yards a pop when they do those short passes, the defense is going to have to stop sitting back so much. And that's when those deep shots open up, and hopefully other teams copy them as well. Okay, Nick Wiebe had a really good game in Ottawa and was our defensive game star, and Luke Mullender had a chance to catch up with him.
Nick, we talked about some of the performances from some of the younger guys here as the weeks go on. You've been climbing, man. It was, again, today, massive fumble caused. Talk about what went into the play. What'd you see, and how'd you manage to capitalize?
I was actually the scraper on the play, so we sent our guy, the usual scraper, hot, so that means I got to be behind everybody else. And I just saw it. It felt like there was 25 yards to the boundary on it, so felt like I had to come crash down on it, and Aubrey did a great job of spilling it right to me. So 1 of 12 effort, honestly. They cut the field off. It was a middle field return all the way, and our field guys won right now, and all the guys in the interior won. So it just left it up to me to make a play, and I was fortunate enough to do so.
When you have a returner and a special teams coordinator like Jeff Reinbold behind that returner, what went into scheming this week? What are some things that you knew you had to do when you got a guy like Khalil Pimpleton out there?
We knew we had to be ready for anything with Coach Reinbold. He has a long history of throwing some crazy looks at you and stuff you've never seen before. So we knew we had to be on point on the punt team, and generally all the special teams had to be on point today, especially with Pimpleton back there. He housed one on us last year that got called back on a holding, and so we knew what we were in for today, and we were fortunate enough to contain him. But it was a group effort.
Talk about your role, man. You're developing into the leader that the team can really leverage.
I love those guys in that room, right? It's not hard to lead those guys. You could talk to any of the captains on the team. This is an easy group to lead. Everybody wants to be great. Everyone's like-minded. So I just do my job and then show up every day, hopefully with a smile on my face, and we go from there.
A lot of people in Rider Nation want to know, Nick Wiebe, is how much of a percentage of your game check do you spend on tattoos weekly?
It was a heavy hit early in my career for sure. It was a good amount, but I had to pass with Mom first. That was the biggest hump. Wasn't the financial one. It was passing with Mom first, and I had to make sure she was good with it.
So basically, you treated yourself early on in your career.
Indeed.
But now, so now it's kind of smoothing out.
Exactly. Now I'm back in Mom's good books. I'm back in my accountant's good books. We're all in a good spot now.
There we go, man. Did you go to economics at the U of S?
I did. I was a finance major, so I'm pretty good with numbers here and there. But obviously we were in the red for a little bit off the tattoo.
So the tats are budgeted then. You're good.
Exactly. No, they were right. They were filled into the leisure budget, so we were good.
Hey, man, keep playing well, keep staying healthy, man, and it's been great to see you perform. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate you, Lou. Thank you, brother.
All right, that is Nick Wiebe, and the defensive game star in the Friday night victory at, I still call it Lansdowne Park, in the victory over the Ottawa Red Blacks. And by the way, Trevor Harris is now 3-0 against Ottawa in his last 3 games against them as the starting quarterback with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Kind of ironic that we're talking with Nick Wiebe after a victory that was largely because of the special teams, because he's usually a special teams performer. Mm-hmm. And Matthew Sexton stole the show with his 104-yard punt return touchdown.
Ooh, yeah.
Which really was the difference in the game. It was kind of a opposite of when we're watching the replay on the YouTube feed. And it was kind of a opposite of what happened against Toronto, where giving up a kick return was the difference. And in this victory, the kick return was the difference to get the win. No game is ever that simple, but that's, if you're just looking at it from a scoring perspective, it sure looks that way.
Talking about that kick return, we actually got a text here from Kyle from Condry. Love seeing the Riders win on Friday. That punt return was amazing, and all I want to know was, what was the Ottawa punter thinking when he went to make that tackle? I can't figure it out.
Oh, did he whiff on the tackle? I didn't even notice that.
Here, it's gonna pop up right here on the stream, right?
I thought Sexton might have stepped out of bounds. Oh, that was a terrible. You know what? Most coaches don't want their kickers doing that. Most coaches say it's not worth the risk of injury, because the problem is if your punter's out, you don't always have anybody on the roster who can fill in for the rest of the game. So they don't really want you doing that anyways. But yeah, that looked pretty lame. I remember when Paul McCallum used to wave at guys going by him, and it made for some nice blooper material, like as if he was trying to tackle him. But John Ryan used to go downfield and tackle guys, and he got injured a few times. I think in an NFL game, I think he broke a rib or he had a bad rib injury. And coaches don't want that either.
At that point, like if your coach is telling you don't make the tackle,
then just get out of the way. Although you still want to run up and at least maybe push him out of bounds. Or scare him out of bounds. Make it look.
I think that's what the
like you're going to make
was.
Like I'm going to tackle you. I'm going to attack you. Okay, maybe not.
So yeah,
he called his bluff. Sexton called his bluff by running inside, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So Kyle, that's exactly what he was thinking. He was coming up and he said, "I'm going to make this tackle." Yeah, and then went for the push and kind of whiffed on it.
So that play got a lot of attention. I think the play that got the most attention was the 3rd and 1. Where Ottawa was driving, and we were just past the 3-minute warning, and they had it 3rd and 1 at the Rider 15-yard line, and they're only down by 5 points. And I don't think anybody's questioning the fact that Dinwiddie went for it, but it amazes me how much of an adventure 3rd and 1 has become in the Canadian Football League. Because remember, you have to give him a full yard off the ball. It's not like down south where you can be right up in his face on the line of scrimmage. So there was once upon a time where getting that yard was routine. And then that changed. And I suspect a big reason it changed is defenses got better as far as figuring out how to defend that play. Some of the old offensive line coaches blame it on the fact they don't practice in pads as much as they used to, right, for safety reasons. So the offensive line, they're not practicing that push as much. And that's a big reason why the Saskatchewan Roughriders have a third down specialist, a short yardage guy in Tommy Stevens. In my day, I love to reminisce about the good old days. As a young fan, you never had a guy who that was his job, because everybody could do it. The starting quarterback would do it. Damon Allen would do it. Doug Flutie would do it. They would just put their head into the pile. They would get that extra yard. Now, because that yard is not automatic, that's what has necessitated a Tommy Stevens. Tommy Stevens wouldn't have existed in the Canadian Football League 20 years ago or 25 years ago because every quarterback could do it. It was a routine first down. The fact that it is no longer a routine first down is why he exists. So now teams have to make the choice. That's why we have 3 quarterbacks on every roster.
We got 4 on the Roughrider roster
4 right now. But like you look at the NFL has money to burn, and yet they don't have money to have a third quarterback on the roster. That just blows my mind, and it always has. Some teams can, but usually they don't, because it's just a regular roster spot. And most teams feel like there's a better spot elsewhere. I think it's important that you have a third guy, because if number 1 gets injured, you don't want number 2 saying, well, I can't run the football because I can't get injured. He has to be able to play with all of the tools in his holster, knowing that there is a third guy backing him up as well. So the Riders use that third spot for Tommy Stevens, and teams used to use Dakota Prukop. You might remember him with Winnipeg. Did he play with Edmonton? I'm trying to remember. But he was a short yardage guy. Teams have to choose, are we going to use that guy, or are we going to go for a project, like a long-term guy, somebody who could be great in the long run? I think you'd rather do that. Like Winnipeg is going that route because you've got Zach as the number 1, you've got Drew Brown as the number 2, and Taylor Elgersma is a long-term project who's going to be much better than just a short yardage quarterback if all goes well with him in his development. So Ottawa has a short, my understanding is Bryson Barnes practices it, but they just didn't execute. And Ryan Dinwiddie coached teams are famous for being terrible at short yardage. Through all his time coaching the Argonauts, he was with Toronto for 5 seasons. They had great success until the last year. 4 out of the 5 years were really, really good as far as winning Grey Cups, finishing first. They finished first or won the Grey Cup in his first 4 years there. It was the last year when they didn't have Chad Kelly where they really struggled, but they also had really good production out of Nick Arbuckle. Like, he got more out of Nick Arbuckle than any other coach, any coach would have imagined. Like, he looked like a starting caliber quarterback for that season, largely because of Ryan Dinwiddie. But there's a couple of quirks with him. Number one, he does not manage the clock well. Dinwiddie has always been a terrible manager of the clock and his timeouts. You might remember the famous incident where he took a knee twice, and then they had to kick the ball back because he forgot that they still had 2 timeouts left, or 1 timeout left, and BC came back and pushed it to overtime. So that was a little bit embarrassing. It's almost like he can do the really hard things as a coach really well, but struggles with some of the simple stuff like clock management and third down short yardage. Now, usually where they struggle is because most teams just run a quarterback sneak and go get the first down. He likes to hand the ball off like 2 yards deep, and it bites him in the face. Sometimes it works out because if that running back gets loose, he can get 5 or 10 yards. But the juice isn't always worth the squeeze in those situations, because if you risk having a turnover, then what have you really gained? If you turn the ball over once, it kind of defeats the purpose of getting all creative on third down.
All security is job security, Mr. McGuire.
Right. And so in that game against the Riders, I don't think there was anything wrong with the play call. You could say that maybe they didn't practice it enough, they didn't execute it, or you could just say that Jackson Ford made a really good play coming off the edge to nail Barnes, the quarterback, and happened to hit him at the right spot because Barnes was moving right into him. Dinwiddie on his post-game show said he thought that Barnes went a hair wide, like thought he went too wide. Dinwiddie is kind of gaining a reputation for throwing his guys under the bus a little bit, but he's not shy to do that. And I think he's a head coach who has enormous capital right now.
Ryan Dinwiddie and Chad Kelly have a little something in common, throwing other guys under the bus when things don't go their way.
Well, he did a little bit of that last year in Toronto, and I think the players responded like the first time, maybe the second time, but not the third time. Like, you can do that. You can get away with some of that, right? Is it throwing guys under the bus, or is it holding them accountable, right? It's kind of like Mike Babcock. Debate. It's like Mike Babcock in Edmonton, or part of it. A lot of people pick on him and think he's a terrible coach and a terrible person, and then you get through the layers of what the terrible things were that he actually did. Like Mike Commodore likes to cry and whine and complain that Babcock benched him when he was a young defenseman on the bubble, and then late in his career, Babcock did it to him again. So does that mean that Babcock's a terrible coach or a terrible person, or was Mike Commodore just not a very good NHLer at that time, right? Mm-hmm. So holding guys accountable and even doing a little bit of it in public, I think, is okay, and in some cases it's even good. To a point, it has a shelf life. So the fact that Dinwiddie has gone to that well a little bit already, week 4 into his tenure with Ottawa, makes you wonder how this is going to go. I'm not saying that he has a short leash as a head coach. He doesn't. He has lots of rope to work with here. But when you do things your way, as they have with Ottawa, right? Drew Brown was supposed to be the franchise guy. Drew Brown took them to the playoffs 2 years ago. They were looking pretty good and putting up big numbers. So to decide that he's the backup for with apologies to Jake Maier, he's a quarterback that other teams don't want, right? The Calgary Stampeders didn't want him as their starter. Saskatchewan didn't want him as their starter. Other teams viewed Jake Maier as a backup. So you're saying somebody who, he's still young enough he could get it all together, but I'm saying other teams think he's a career backup, and you're demoting this guy who has probably had more of a successful season. You could argue that Drew Brown has shown more than Jake Maier has as a starter. That's debatable. So to demote him, and then when he has the audacity to complain about it, kick him out for McLeod Bethel Thompson, who's almost 40, you can do that. But if you're going to talk loud, Jack, you better produce.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Jake Maier kind of being the bona fide starter there over Drew Brown, I think it's a little bit more telling about Drew Brown than it is about Jake Maier. Because Jake Maier comes in, you get like a couple weeks in practice, and next thing you know, you're like, all right, you get the keys to the car. This is your team now. Drew, you're going to have to take a seat. Like, I don't think that's because Jake Maier is just that good that you're just forced to give him the keys to the car. It's more that there's probably some underlying problems with Drew Brown more. And it's like, okay, well, Jake Maier's the guy because we don't want Drew to be the guy.
Are there underlying problems? Maybe is it a problem with Dinwiddie? Right, like who's at fault? I don't know, because part of the job as a head coach is to make it work. Right, here are the groceries. Now you go cook the dinner. So if Dinwiddie doesn't like the groceries, he's got to find other groceries that work better. And I don't know that Jake Maier and McLeod Bethel Thompson is going to excite anybody.
In Ryan Dinwiddie's defense, obviously, this is his first year as head coach and GM. I imagine he's going to get some different pieces next year. So I'm more curious to see what Ottawa will look like next year. I think this year you're just kind of working with what you have. You're kind of coming into the situation. Certain guys that maybe wouldn't be your first choice to be on the roster, but they're under contract. You just kind of have to work with it. And then over the next year or two, that's when you're really going to see the Ottawa Red Blacks kind of morph into Ryan Dinwiddie's DNA and get a little bit of that on it. So,
it's going to take him a while to put his fingerprints all over the roster.
Exactly. So I don't expect much from them this year, but I would be more curious to see what happens in the next year and two. But
it's kind of like with Bill Belichick taking over at North Carolina. There was all this hype, and people in the know who actually follow that conference and actually understand how it all works said, this could work really, really well, but for the first year, they're not going to be very good. You should have low expectations for them in their first year. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much how it panned out. They weren't very good in the first year. It's going to be year 2 and year 3. That'll be the telltale for how that goes. I think in Ottawa, the concern is that apathy has largely fallen in. Like if you watch that game on TV, the amount of empty seats, my goodness. And a lot of those tickets were probably paid for. But even if they are, what does that say about your product if people are paying for your tickets but not showing up? So I think that's the concern in Ottawa, that a lot of people feel like the team has to start winning right away. I don't think the franchise is in any doubt or in any issue. I don't think that the league's survival depends on Ottawa being good, but I could understand how the fan base has just grown really impatient, and that's going to happen when you have a team that has struggled for as long as they have. They've had one playoff game since Trevor Harris left after the 2018 season. That's almost 8 years ago. You can chime in on the discussion, calling us at 1-866-767-0620 or on the text line at 306-936-6262. Prairie Land Rentals and Sales since 1986 for big or small jobs. Stop in and deal with the owner, 600 Albert Street. Snowblowers, skid steers, power sources, moving equipment, all with Prairie Land Rentals and Sales. More of Hour 1, including hearing from the Saskatchewan Roughriders when we come back. You're listening to the Sports Cage on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM, and watching at sportscage.com. Brendan McGuire and Curtis Gammon in Hour 1 of this Monday Sports Cage for Kellen Solar. Still ahead on this edition of the program, we will go to Darian Durant. We will also hear from Roughrider assistant coach Andrew Harris about the big victory. I'll be curious to hear his thoughts on how Quali Conley has done in the 2 games, taking over from one Mr. AJ Ouellette. You can call us at 1-866-767-0620 or on the Prairie Land Rentals and Sales text line, 306-936-6262. You can also comment on X, Twitter, whatever they call that garbage dump now, at SportsCage is...
wow. Choice words.
Okay. Matthew Sexton had the punt return touchdown, and apparently our very own Wes Cates called it.
Yeah. So on our pregame show, we had what we call Cates' Corner, one of my favorite segments. Glenn Suter keeps saying that he wants to get on Cates' Corner one of these days. We'll try our best. Suits, if you're listening, we'll figure something out. But we're kind of talking about guys that are getting back at your ex. So it's like a lot of ex-Roughriders are on the Ottawa roster. And then also the inverse. Matthew Sexton was cut by the Red Blacks.
I didn't know that.
So, yes, he was one of those guys that had a chip on his shoulder. So this is Wes Cates kind of talking about getting back at the X.
The other things I really wanted to talk about was, getting a chance to get back at your ex. Mm-hmm. I remember my first game against the Calgary Stampeders after I got traded to the Riders and it kind of went back to the 2006 season when I didn't sign a 3-year contract that they wanted me to sign because I thought I wanted more money. Now, I got to Saskatchewan because of a trade at the beginning of 2007 because the Stampeders had a bunch of backs, Anyway, long story short, I balled against Calgary the first time I got a chance. I was so up for that game, Teagan. You do not understand. They had this linebacker that, for whatever reason, ended up having to cover me a lot that game. He was like some safety that they moved the linebacker from USC, but I gave this dude the business. I scored a couple touchdowns. Then one time we were running down on punt. And a matter of fact, we were running down on punt, and he wasn't even my man. And he was going to run down to get in position to get a block, but he got too close to me while he was running, and I just dumped him, tossed him on his back while we're running down on punts. So I just had it out for anybody that got within my vicinity. I even threw the ball at the Calgary Stampeders sideline after I scored. I'm surprised I didn't get a penalty for that. But we're looking at today. Enough about myself. So there's some Ottawa Red Black players that obviously were great players that were with the Riders last year. You talk about A.J. Allen. You talk about C.J. Rivas, both starting at the outside linebackers. Baldonado, DN. Now, I don't know how all this stuff panned out with those guys. Brett Lowther, the kicker. Jake Mayer. Yeah, that's a few years back. Hopefully he's not still that butthurt over, but he should be more butthurt over the way he's playing right now than not being with the Riders anymore. But I digress on beating up on Jake Mayer. He is one of the guys that might maybe have a little fodder to get back at the Riders, but usually it kind of dies down after, your first chance to get back at them. And then Brett Lowther, offense has to get in position for him to even impact the game. But still, he's probably wants to stick it to his former team, obviously. But so there's a lot of guys that maybe want to, have a good showing against their former Riders team. Now, obviously, they had some opportunities to re-sign with the Riders, but I hear there's some people felt a little slighted by the Riders, particularly AJ, based on he just didn't think they tried hard enough to keep him. So we'll have to keep an eye on him, see how he plays today, see if he makes some impact plays. But the one guy I'm rooting for that has some fire and should want some get back, Matthew Sexton. Mm-hmm. Now, the Ottawa Red Blacks didn't even want to keep this dude coming out of camp. Didn't even think he was good enough to throw on practice roster. Now, all of a sudden, here we go. He's in the green and white, baby, and he's got a chance to return today. I hope they throw him back there and let him go ham, because if there's any day he's going to have a big return, it better be today. Now, we do need some help from this Rider special teams crew that seems to have trouble blocking, and when they do get a good block, seems to always be a hold somewhere in there. So let's hope they've cleaned some of that up. But I do want to see Matthew Sexton get his chance. There's nothing like that first game when you get to go against a team that didn't think you were good enough to be on their roster. So let's keep an eye on Matthew Sexton. Let's maybe hope he might even get some reps at receiver to impact this game, because he's going to be ready to play. I guarantee you that. But like I said, my first game against Calgary, I was all over the place. I gave it to them boys. They missed me. They missed me after that one, I guarantee you.
Sounds like Wes knows what it feels like to be irreplaceable. I remember that game, like yesterday, when he came over from Calgary. Mm-hmm. Kent Austin and Eric Tillman made that trade. They traded Rob Lazio, who's a really good O-lineman, backup O-lineman. Sometimes they'd bring him in as a tight end. And Wes was pretty fired up. It was a 49-8 victory over the Calgary Stampeders. Just totally destroyed them. That was Kent Austin's first home win as head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and they went on to win the Grey Cup after finishing 12-6 and having a great year. Yeah. Wes sounded like he was ready to strap him on. telling that story. Was this? But I think he's just making the point about Matthew Sexton.
Yeah, and AJ Allen too. Like immediately out of the gate, AJ Allen had a little something to prove, and he got that pick. Well, it's such a wacky pick, but I mean, he still got it, and it got a little bit spicy afterwards too. Like you can tell there's a little bit of animosity there, which I didn't until I saw like the 3-down article that Dunk did. I didn't even realize that he kind of left on bad terms. I thought he wanted to just leave to get paid, but yeah, no, AJ probably would have stayed, I guess. So it's nice to be able to kind of get back at your old team for sure. And then the Sexton return was also fantastic. Wes is getting really good at calling that stuff too. Seems to call it every pregame now.
Well, AJ Allen might be getting slighted because he wants to get slighted, right? Like everybody can interpret it in different ways. The fact that they didn't re-sign him probably had lots of reasons around it, as far as he could command this on the open market and we have other needs, so we're going to focus on that. We can't keep everybody. It's the same reason Tommy Neild isn't here, and at the time they didn't know that they weren't going to keep Aju, right? In different positions, I understand, but AJ Allen being a good Canadian defender is going to command a lot of scratch, and they probably said we need to rebuild our pass rush, not spend a bunch of money on this linebacking core. And Allen might have taken it as a slight, more due to the fact that he looks at his buddy Sam Emilus, who gets paid. They backed up the money truck for him, and they focused on bringing him back, but not AJ Allen. I think most objective observers would say that was not a bad decision, because the offense functions much differently without Sam Emilus than it does when he's in the lineup. I've been going on and on about how important AJ Ouellette is to the functionality of this offense. I don't know that he's more important than Sam Emilus, right?
Yeah.
So
the quote that kind of sticks out from the article is, "I didn't leave to be the highest paid. I left because I felt like I was no longer wanted," which I feel like that just sounds like a communication thing more than anything. A
communication thing, and maybe they thought he was overrated and didn't want to come out and say it. Well, we'll never know, right? Because maybe we will, maybe we won't, but a lot of that stuff never comes out. But one thing that surprises me a little bit is when a player is from far away, and I'm talking like down east. AJ Allen's from Ontario. Sam Emilus is from Montreal. We assume that they would rather go and play in their hometown. And often that's not the case. They love playing here. Are you kidding me? You play in this stadium? What's his face? The Premier, Mo. He's always bragging that we have some of the lowest taxes in Canada, right? And for some of these guys, it's kind of a nice life to go home to wherever it is in the off season, Toronto or Montreal, for 6 months of the year, and then come to Regina, because that's when the weather here is nice, and it gives them a break from being at home. It's like they get to go live in this other universe. So that's what grabs my attention. What's that?
A workcation.
I guess so. But that tells me that players love being here in the summer. Maybe it's because of the stadium. Maybe it's because the team is so good. Maybe it's because Regina is not such a bad place to live after all. That's what it's telling me.
For even some of the American guys, I always hear them kind of describe it kind of like a college football atmosphere that Mosaic kind of brings, in the crowd and Rider Nation. And it's fun crew to play for, honestly. So shout out to all the fans.
Or if the player's from Texas, he might think it's a really raucous, is that the word? Exciting high school type of crowd, because they have some big high school stadiums down in Texas. Coming up next in hour 2, we will check in with Saskatchewan Roughrider assistant coach Andrew Harris, and also still ahead on this edition of the program, the Regina Red Sox Report with Dante DeCaria. You are listening to the Sports Cage on the Voice of Saskatchewan 620 CKRM and watching on the YouTube feed at sportscage.com.
It's time for the Sports Ticker, brought to you by Reliance Heath Water Heater Rentals. Rent a water heater and water softener starting at about $1.20 a day and get $400 when you switch to Reliance Heath.
2 games in the Western Canada Baseball League tonight. The Regina Red Sox on the road to play the Saskatoon Berries, and the Weyburn Beavers are at home to the Medicine Hat Mavericks. Those are the only 2 games anywhere in the WCBL on this Monday. Of course, in the East Division, the Red Sox 6 games under 500. I don't think anybody would have predicted that coming into the season for the defending champs. We'll have more about that a little bit later with the great Dante DeCaria on the Sports Cage in Hour 3. I also wanted to point out that we don't know who's going to start in the Saskatchewan Roughriders' next game for the opposition. The Hamilton Tiger Cats come in on Sunday, and the big story last night, Bo Levi Mitchell, they're calling it a lower body injury. Most people seem to think it's just a broken ankle, simple as that. And either way, doesn't look like he's going to be playing anytime soon. Very likely it will be Trey Ford coming in and starting at quarterback for the Ticats. Remember, Trey Ford has given the Rider defense fits before with all of his running. So definitely a big downgrade and kicking the you-know-what for the Hamilton Ticats. But not a bad matchup for them if they're going to go against a Corey Mace defense. He might be the type of quarterback who can give them a better go than some of the others who might back up one Bo Levi Mitchell. Sports Ticker for Reliance Heath Water Heater Rentals, keeping you in hot and soft water. Call on Reliance. Monday Sports Cage for Kellen Solar, Brendan McGuire, and Curtis Gammon running the show here today. Still ahead, we will do Double Talk with Darian Durant. That's coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, and also Dante DeCaria with this week's Regina Red Sox Report. The Sox in action tonight in Saskatoon, facing the Berries. A half dozen games under 500, but luckily it's still early in the season. They just need to get hot and get on a bit of a roll to get back into the thick of things in the Western Canada Baseball League standings. You can chime in on the Prairie Land Rentals and Sales text line at 306-936-6262. Prairie Land Rentals and Sales since 1986 for big or small jobs. Stop in and deal with the owner, 600 Albert Street. Snowblowers, skid steers, power sources, moving equipment, etc. Time now for the Coaches Show.
It's time for the Sports Cage Riders Coaches Show for Steelcraft Doors, made in Western Canada for Western Canada. Locations in Regina, Saskatoon, and Prince Albert, and servicing all of Saskatchewan.
Very pleased to be joined on this week's edition of the Coaches Show with Saskatchewan Roughrider assistant coach Andrew Harris. And Andrew, I don't know if you get to spend a lot of time in Saskatchewan during the off season. While you're here, are you like these stories we hear of coaches just being cramped in offices all the time and working long hours, or do you actually get a chance to get out, fish, go see the lake?
Yeah, not much time on our hands here at coaching. I do have my young family here, though, so whenever I do get a moment to take off and spend some time with them, I went to the splash pad yesterday at Wascana Park, and got two kids under 4. So any kind of activities for the kids is what we're looking at, and a couple of buddies with places or RVs out at Indian Head. So trying to get out there as much as we can. But we do have a bye week after this game. Not looking ahead too far, but heading back to Winnipeg for that one to see the grandparents. So. But yeah, not much free time on our hands, which is unfortunate. I'd like to be able to explore a little bit more, but it is what it is.
Well, at least you're getting your licks in while you can. But if anybody around the Rider office says, hey, we've got free passes to different parks, you can go anywhere you want, just remember to say Waskesiu. That's where you want to go. It's beautiful in Waskesiu. It's one of the nicest parks in Canada. A little bit of a drive up north, but I'm sure you can figure out logistics a little bit later. Hey, I wanted to ask you real quick, because I know you've been involved a lot with junior football with the Vancouver Island Raiders. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I did a lot more work in the Prairie Football Conference with the Regina Thunder. There's been this crazy story out of Prince George about chaos with their junior football program, the Prince George Kodiaks. I don't expect you to comment too much on that, but are you seeing that story, and is that something that's common that happens at the junior football level to the best of your knowledge?
Yeah, I took over as president for the Raiders a couple years ago. The team was, had a couple of rough few years, and yeah, just financially and on the field, and yeah, it's been a journey. I mean, when I played from 2005 2009. We had a lot of good success, and but it's junior football, and we were privately owned at that point in time, and had an owner that was really generous, I would say, as far as spending on the team and making sure we had everything we needed. But when you have a community-owned team, or a privately owned team, or a non-for-profit, which we are now, you got to do things by the book, and when there's big donations and there's big sponsors coming in, it's just if there's a board, there's always going to be disagreements on how you're going to allocate that money and where it's going to go. But the hardest part is just, making sure that everyone's on board. And one of the things I tell our board now is, we're all here for a reason, and that's to the better, the experience and the playing of the guys, the young men on the field. And if there's anyone that's out of line, that's not, in synergy with that, then, if it's an ego thing, or if they're doing it for themselves or for some sort of self-purpose, we try to wean them out. So kind of seems like there were some board issues and some leadership issues there, but again, I don't know too much. I just kind of focus on what I can focus on, which is the Raiders, and we did benefit from some of the losses from some of their players moving on. So you can never complain when you're getting a starting right tackle from a team that was in the playoffs last year. So that was a bonus for us. So I'm not no complaints there. But the biggest thing is with a 6-team league or 7-team league, the more teams that are active and productive, the more opportunities that kids are getting to play football. So I'm happy that there was talks that they were going to fold and that they're still in the league. And because the more opportunities for young men to play football outside of youth sports, junior is a very unique league that gives guys a lot of opportunity. And Prince George is an interesting market and place in itself. We play there week 2. It's a long trip for us, and but the guys are excited about seeing the interior and getting up there, and hopefully it's just not 48 degrees or 45 degrees like it was last year, because it's a long trip and a lot of heat. So, but yeah, it's always a good time to get away from the island and get the guys to go experience northern BC.
Don't be afraid to send an extra right tackle if you have one our way for our Thunder in Regina, just so you know, in case you have a few.
Yeah, you guys got lots of great talent here. It's actually really impressive to see what the program has done, and even now, working with Peter Borsch and Ben Walls, on the practice roster here, it's a pretty cool, surreal moment for me. Having gone through that route of being on the practice roster while still playing junior. Those guys are going to have unreal seasons, just being able to have that access and the resources we have here. The game will be slow motion for them once they get back on that Thunder field, and I'm excited to see how well they do this year.
Can't wait for the fall. I want to talk a little bit about the team you're with now, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and of course that pal of yours, AJ Ouellette, under your wing. And we do the weekly TV show, and one thing that Marshall Hamilton brought up is we brought up this crazy graphic that shows Saskatchewan's record with AJ Ouellette in the lineup and Saskatchewan's record without him in the time that he's been here since the 2024 season. We called it the Legend of Thor, and the record with AJ in the lineup is 23-8, and without him 4-7-1. Now, there's other factors. I'm not saying it's just one player. Does an offense make, or does a team make? But it seems to me like AJ's impact on the offense is what he does that does not show up on the stat sheet. His ability to pick up blocks, his presence. Can you maybe expand on that a little bit? It just seems to me like there's so much that a complete running back does that even those of us who follow the game don't always see or know much about.
Well, you said those 3 words there in a whole there, the complete running back. So that's one of the goals we have as a group, is to be the complete running back. And for us, it comes down to protection first, obviously receiving the ball, and then being an elite rusher, which AJ is. And then the fourth one that kind of goes untold and one of the hardest ones to obtain is great leadership. So AJ possesses all four of those standards within the group. As you alluded to, he's an outstanding pass protector. Sometimes he picks up guys that he's not supposed to, helps the whole line out. He's great in those chipping responsibilities where we're just trying to get a piece of the defensive lineman, whether it's interior or exterior. He's definitely underrated as far as his pass catching abilities. He makes guys miss in those tight windows and has good hands. And then when he has the ball in his hands running the football, we kind of talked about it, and one of the things that we really focus on is being a high efficiency runner. So, for us, if we can get into situations where we're second and 8, second and 7, again, that's not a sexy run, so to speak, as far as a first down production, but with our quarterback play, we function very high at those second and 6, second and 7, second and 8 situations, opposed to being at second and 10 or second and 12 or 11. So for us, as long as we're staying ahead of the chains and getting positive yardage on every opportunity, and obviously those explosions will come as they go. But AJ is very efficient, very high efficiency in his running, and I think just the calmness and presence and leadership that he brings within the group, especially with him and Trevor, they have a great relationship on the field and off the field. I think he just brings a certain confidence and conviction within the offense, and definitely brings an energy and a physicality that is infectious throughout the group. So definitely a crucial part of our offense. And but having said that, the guys that stepped in the last 2 weeks did a heck of a job. Kwali Conley, basically his first 2 games, and he was really impressive in training camp. We brought him in 2 days before the Winnipeg game, and he basically picked up the playbook or the game plan for that preseason game within 2 days, and went out and showed well. So and then Tomas has been a very reliable second string guy for the last few years, and he's a guy that we want to get more opportunities to, because throughout practice and throughout the course of the last few years, he's shown that he can be a productive runner, and that Canadian passport that he possesses is an added bonus for us as well too. So I'm loving the guys we got in the backfield. Our fullbacks are lights out too. So it's been a great group to work with, and I'm really excited for the rest of the season and seeing how much more production we get out of them, and how it can expand their games as we grow.
AJ is learning about being a running back, or knows all about being a professional running back, on the wrong side of 30. And I get the sense that there's a lot of extra work that goes to being able to continue playing running back on the wrong side of 30. And that's something certainly you know a lot about. I'm often curious, how does an athlete go through all that, but yet at the same time maintain the joy of being an athlete? Because I sense that you cannot perform at your highest level if you're not loving being out there with your teammates. How do you do that when it can be such a grind, particularly for a running back near the end of his career?
Yeah, I think, and that's such a cliche in my mind. I know as a running back, everyone says your career should be declining at 30. I really disagree with that statement. And
you've
also
proven it. You've proven it. When did you play your last game? Were you 36? Is that how old you were?
Yeah, I was 35, 36. Okay. But the thing is that as you take more and more snaps, and you've seen every defense, you understand how coordinators are going to try to attack you, and you understand how defenders are going to attack you. The game really slows down for you, or it should anyways. And that's the goal that we're trying to work with AJ in a sense, is that, he's been such a physical type of back, where he's taken on, numerous tackles that, he shouldn't have to, or doesn't need to. And the challenge has been is to get him to be a little more dynamic, play a little more loose, not so tight and trying to run through everything and absorb more than explode through guys. So for him, and that's part of staying healthy as well too, is not taking as many impact plays and as many car crashes throughout a game. So, but as you get older and as you see the game should slow down. But as that comes, your physicality, your athleticism is going to naturally go down with it. So, my theory is that, and I watch I still pull up clips from, my first couple of years, and I'm like, what the heck was I looking at? I wish I could go back to young Andrew or young AJ and be coaching them then, because as you see the game a little easier, and there's so many different ways and things you can do. A lot of people tell, or say that, you can't teach a guy how to run the football. And I think that's absolute nonsense. There's so many different ways you can do things and attack people. And there's so many ways that you can, be elusive and manipulate their attack angles and the way that they approach you. So, and the way you use the blockers in front of you. So there's tons of different ways we approach that, depending on the play call, depending on the defense we're playing, depending on the guy we're going against. So, that's been the key for me, is helping the game slow down for AJ, help him understand when to take the shots, when not to, when to use a sideline, when to use his hands, when to, use different tackle destruction moves, and just trying to make the game as slow as possible for him. And our mantra is minimum movement, maximize production. So, if we're wasting time and wasting energy on certain cuts or certain movements, we're not going to maximize our production that way. So we want to minimize those movements, minimize those cuts, minimize those hits, those car crashes, and we want to maximize that production over an 18 game plus the 3 or 2 in the playoffs. So that's the goal for us. And from last year, looking on to this year, I thought we hit the ground running. Obviously, for AJ particularly, the injury is going to set him back a bit. But he's been working his butt off to get back into the lineup, and for him, I think the boredom or the grind, I think he's appreciating it more now too, because he's got a young family, he's got his daughter, he's got his lady here, and having that home and work life balance is another hurdle that we have to kind of figure out. But as you have family and you have another purpose, another why, it kind of gives you an extra motivation to continue your career and be more successful and still maintain being one of the top earners in this league, and he's certainly that, and a staple in this community, and he's doing a hell of a job as far as being a father and a pro athlete and a leader in our locker room.
Saskatchewan Roughrider running back coach Andrew Harris joining us on the Coaches Show here on Hour 2 of the Monday SportsCage for Kellen Solar. I've heard from athletes who have been elite and then have had to coach later and put a different hat on. Some of the challenges with being patient, and what I mean by that is maybe getting through the frustration of, I know where he's supposed to be, but he's not going there. And it's simple to me because I've done it my whole life. Why isn't it simple for him? I remember hearing from a guy named Tex Winter, who was a famous assistant coach with the Chicago Bulls, who I don't want to say invented, but kind of ran the triangle offense with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. And when the Bull dynasty got broken up, he would say things like, well, no, this is how Scottie would do it. And then he remembered, I can't do that. Do you ever find yourself going through that struggle when you're dealing, whether it's AJ, Quali, or anybody else, showing the necessary patience for the athletes who can do it, but not do it as precise as Andrew Harris did it?
Yeah, I think we just got to break things down into the how and the why, and not so much the what result, right? So for me, everything that we do, we have pretty simple principles and disciplines that we follow, and it's simple as a key on where we're supposed to aim. Or discipline of how we're supposed to attack that. And then when you break it down and you watch the film and you can see the player not doing it and the play doesn't work, you simply just go back to our rules and disciplines and say, hey, did you follow these rules? Did you follow this philosophy? Did you follow that discipline? And then when they say no, then you said, okay, well, that's where we start. So it's not as simple as just like, oh, I'm telling you to do this, so just do it. There's rules and disciplines and reasons why we have those in there to help them be successful. So Going back to last year, did I have those figured out? No. I think as a coach, I've grown into understanding, my philosophy and putting that down on paper and helping me coach it and drill it into the minds of the players. So it's easy for them. And then they can figure out, how am I going to do this? Why am I going to do this? And then what's going to be the result after? So that's our mentality. And again, it is tough just to say, okay, I was good at doing this, so you got to do it as well. That's tough just to be a dictator. You got to break it down into a systematic approach. And that's exactly what we've done with our group. And everyone has different running styles. Everyone does, things a different way, but we're all kind of on the same disciplines and philosophies of how we're going to get there and how we're going to execute it. So, and then their skill sets individually will take over after the fact. But, my mindset is, our footwork to get to our mesh, our approach to the aiming point should all kind of be the same and systematic that way, because the O-line is for the most part, all the same 5 guys, and they're still, running the same kind of approaches and lanes and aiming points. So we got to match that and then let our physicality and our athleticism take over after that's said and done. But, as far as the coaching, that system is, there's a lot of disciplines and philosophy that go into, each and individual play. And it's all systematic, and the approach we have is very, again, high efficiency, and our approach to it is diligent. And like I said, I feel like the new guys especially are picking it up well, and AJ's, kind of mastered it in a sense. And there's always going to be room for improvement and on a week-to-week basis. And, that's the exciting part about coaching.
Well, it's been fun to watch, and I know everybody was disappointed that it's not a perfect record through 4 games, but hey, in an 18-game season, nobody's ever been able to pull off a perfect 18-0 schedule, and what's that saying? No one bats 1,000, and it's a marathon, not a sprint, but it's exciting to see what's happening with this team again in a season where the regular season really does matter, because 3 out of 6 teams will not make the playoffs. We say it every year that the West Division looks like it'll be a dogfight, and it seems to me like it's more of a dogfight this year than ever before. Does it kind of feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We as coaches, and you don't really notice it as a player. You're just kind of going on a week-to-week basis. But we look back at, I was talking with Coach Edwin Harrison. He was my running back coach in Toronto. But even when we were, I think, 14-2, in the CFL, you rarely blow out teams, whether they're at the bottom of the barrel or, they're a divisional rival, or, you're going 1-2, or, it's hard to blow teams out in this league. And for whatever reason, I think the big thing for us is maintaining our standard, our approach throughout a week-to-week basis, and not taking anyone lightly, and understanding that we're defending Grey Cup champions, and we're tied for first in the West, which seems to be the more dominant conference this year. But we're going to get everyone's best no matter who we're playing, and we have to understand that and make sure that we're on our P's and Q's, and we're ready for everything that teams are going to throw at us. So the big thing now is just how we approach and push our standard daily. And even when we're playing a weaker team, or an injury-riddled team, that we come out attacking, we start fast, we finish strong, and we win the physicality department. And one of the big things for us as a running back group is make the ordinary look violent. And I want us to be able to impose our will and our physicality on teams for a full 60 minutes where they're feeling the wrath. And when we're up, in a tight game, or we're up in a game where we're up a couple of scores, that everyone knows we're going to be running the football. And it doesn't matter if they know where it's going. Are we still going to be successful? Are we still going to move in the chains? Are we still going to be falling forward with the defenders on their backs, and when we're chewing out time and yardage? And that's the biggest thing that we want to achieve as a group within our personal goals as a group. But also the biggest goal is just going 1-0. So no matter how that looks, we want to end up with us in the running back room with the ball in our hands, with the control of the clock and that time in our hands, and again knowing that we're running the football, we're running down your throats, and there's nothing that you guys can do about it to stop us. We're here we come, show up and shut us out, and we're not gonna take no for an answer. So that's great football right there. And you want to be able to have the game in your hands at the end of the game with a winning score and impose your will on that defense.
Before we let you go, I just realized it wasn't that long ago I saw someone interview Tom Brady and ask him, what does a guy with 7 Super Bowl rings do with all that bling? And I realize you are at number 5 already, and you're trying to add to that collection. So let me ask you, Andrew Harris, what does a guy with 5 Grey Cup rings do with all that jewelry?
For me, I enjoy it for a few days and share it with family and friends, and then they get tucked away in my safety security box, and I don't really look at them again. And I'm already thinking about getting the next one. So, I think once I'm done playing, or my kids get a little older, I'll maybe have them shown off at the house or something. But for me, I'm always looking for the next one, and I'm insatiable that way. Where 5's not good enough. I'm shooting for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and but it's on a year-to-year basis, and it's on a week-to-week basis and a day-to-day basis at this point. I'm just trying to go 1-0 each day at the office here, and then when we get on the practice field, and just help the group be as best they can be, and just compete every single day in every single manner that I can. And I don't really look back and be in awe or glory of the things I've done in the past. I'm looking forward to accomplishing the next and going to win the next one. So that's my mindset. That's my the way I operate. And some of my buddies say it's kind of sick, but even when we're playing cards at the house, I'm very competitive in everything I do. So that's what keeps me going.
Well, if Warren Moon comes back, as he does every so often, if you do, your motivation this year can be that if you get number 6, the next time Warren Moon comes to town, you can put all 6 on your fingers and go shake Warren's hand, who's only got 5. You'll have him one-upped if you get one more. Andrew Harris, this has been fun. Thanks for doing this, and good luck on Sunday. Hopefully you can make it 4-1.
Beautiful. Thanks, man. Thanks for the time.
Okay, that is Saskatchewan Roughrider running back coach Andrew Harris joining us on the Western Pizza Hotline, and the Coaches Show every Monday here on the Sports Cage. The Greek-style pizza that has become famous around the world, plus all the Greek and Canadian food you can't get enough of. Western Pizza, the local legend. Time to break. Still ahead on this edition of the Sports Cage. Double talk with Darian Durant and the Regina Red Sox Report. You are listening to the Sports Cage on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM, and watching at sportscage.com.
The Sports Cage Clutch Performer for Keln Solar. Thinking about saving money by using solar power? Keln Solar is a local family company that can put solar panels on your home, business, or farm. KelnSolar.com.
Well, this was an easy one for me. And when I get to come in and do the cage on a Monday after a weekend where the Riders played, there's lots of choices. And I don't want to steal any of Curtis's thunder. I don't even know who you're picking, but I'm going to roll. It's a mystery. I'm going to say, like a rock, the Ford truck that smashed into Ottawa's chances in the final 3 minutes, Jackson Ford, who went into Barnes, the short yardage quarterback. That was game over right at that point. You just knew they were going to milk the clock, and the confidence that they had by throwing Tommy Stevens out there on first down. Mm-hmm. They needed 10 yards. Everybody knew they were going to run, and yet there he was running and executing. It all comes down to that play by Jackson Ford. He is easily my clutch performer.
Very nice. That's a very good clutch performer.
And an easy one.
Yeah. Here, I'll do 2. I'll do one for... honestly, Andrew Harris, well-spoken, awesome guy, awesome interview. So shout out to Andrew Harris for joining us on the Coaches Show. He can get one of my clutch performers. And here, I'll give you another one.
It's got some sweet eyewear there, too, in the video that you're showing of the locker room party.
Yes, the goggles.
Scuba gear.
You got to make sure that you don't get any beer in your eyes or anything like that. And then my other clutch performer, for someone that came in clutch, when Teagan was feeling under the weather. We got Brendan McGuire coming and doing the sports cage with me today. You're my clutch performer, Brendan. Good job.
I'm blushing, but be careful. I don't take praise very well. The clutch performer for Keln Solar, installing solar in residential and commercial buildings for 35 years. Local and trusted Keln Solar. Visit kelnsolar.com. One of the comments in the chat, we get lots of comments some days, and so we just pick out who or what we want to address and what we don't. One question that came up from Cole Frank, 9837, does the WCBL have a pitch clock yet? Well, that is a great question and a complicated matter that I will explain as best I can. There's Cole in front of his 1950s pickup truck.
Nice truck.
So, I do think they should have a pitch clock. I hope they get one at some point. I think the pitch clock needs to be universal, and I think we will get there. You have to understand the logistics of running a summer league in Canada where you are negotiating with college coaches down south to send their best arms up here for the summer instead of resting them. So often, that was a big reason why we always had a designated hitter in the WCBL. Maybe we would have had it anyways because it seems like the whole world is moving to a designated hitter. I grew up in a world where the National League was far superior rules. I still prefer NL rules because there's just more to it with double switches and hard decisions to make, but I digress. I understand that the world changes and sometimes we have to change along with it. But that was one of the reasons why we always had a DH in the WCBL, because coaches down south don't want to send their pitchers up here to get injured while running the bases. I also suspect that there are some coaches who don't want to send their pitchers up here to get injured because they're rushing with a pitch clock. A lot of these pitchers are already on innings limits and pitch limits, and that is going to be a tug of war. I do think it is inevitable they are going to have to add a pitch clock at some point. Number one, because that's just the way baseball is moving. Number two, the consumer demands it. People don't want to sit there for 3, 4, 5 hours. But I think the worry is that that could make the games go longer, because if the pitchers are feeling stressed that they have to get so many pitches off and they don't perform as well, that's going to light up your bullpen even further and create more problems. So that'll be, I think it's a really good question. That's something I've often wondered aloud. I don't know where that's going to go, but I do expect in the years ahead they will add a pitch clock, because everybody will add a pitch clock because the consumer will demand it. And also, if a guy is on the mound and he can't perform with a pitch clock, what is he out there? What is he out for anyways? If it's a universal part of the sport, he's going to have to learn how to cope with that pitch clock. And if the guys that we have in the league right now can't work with it, we'll just have to keep looking until we find athletes who can. Change with the times, or the times will change you. I heard Marv Levy say that once. I think he stole that from somebody else. He was trying to convince everybody that he wasn't a dinosaur and that he could still be a general manager of the Buffalo Bills at age 82, and he did okay. So the WCBL is going to have to fall in line with that. And look, the league is trying to be more commercial all the time, right? When it first opened, it was a fun summer league. It was always serious. It was always great ball for hardcore baseball people. But they have been really pushing in recent years to become more mainstream. A lot of that emanates from Okotoks and the franchise they are, where it's not uncommon for them to get 5,000 people.
Love the Dogs.
So you're from there. Are you from Okotoks or Calgary?
I'm from like Northwest, so like the Cochrane area. But like,
did people drive from there to go watch Okotoks? Do you remember people driving down because they have such a nice ballpark? Because usually small will go to big, big won't go to small. But I think big goes to small to see Okotoks from Calgary.
Good question. Like, I definitely knew some friends that lived in kind of like southern Calgary that were big Okotoks Dogs fans. They would drive down to go to Okotoks, which Okotoks is not very far away from like South Calgary. So like if you live in the South, it's like 20-30 minute drive depending where you are. It's not too bad, to be honest. So Yeah, there were people in Calgary that would come and check out the Dogs games because it's a really cool atmosphere for like junior baseball. Yeah,
amazing park, and so everybody around the league wants to be like Okotoks, but the problem is not everybody around the league has a gazillionaire willing to donate a ballpark like in Okotoks, and that push in Edmonton, I think maybe push things a little too far the other way, where they're saying we want to have more games, but then it cramped the schedule so bad that they were having like 3 games in one day, which does not look professional at all. If anything, that looks more Bush League. So I think they're having some problems with the Edmonton / Energy City / Spruce Grove / whatever they are, cactus rats, that are causing some issues for the league. And I was delighted to see that the league's Board of Governors has finally cracked down on this, because that does not help with your credibility, right? You're reluctant to throw the book at a franchise because they're trying to build an amazing facility. But at the same time, if you keep telling everybody that this facility's coming right along and it's going to be ready right away, and it sits half built and not able to use for many, many years, eventually that starts to have a negative impact on your credibility as a league. And eventually you have to step in. And I think it's got to that point with the Western Canada Baseball League and that one franchise in Northern Alberta. Hopefully they can get it resolved. It would be really cool if they get that land development done in Spruce Grove. That would be amazing. And it would be nice if we get some newer facilities, not just in Regina, but I would love to see a nice park in Weyburn or in Swift Current or anywhere else, because remember, the Regina Red Sox need those smaller cities to have teams as well. And so it has to be viable for them. I'm still a little bit chapped that Yorkton and Melville don't have franchises anymore in the WCBL, but that's a whole other conversation. You can chime in on the discussion by calling at 1-866-767-0620 or on the Prairie Land Rentals and Sales mobile text line, 306-936-6262. Since 1986, for big or small jobs, stop in and deal with the owner, 600 Albert Street, Prairie Land Rentals and Sales. Time to break. Still ahead on this edition of the program. We will check in with Darian Durant and also Dante DeCaria with the Regina Red Sox Report. You're listening to the Sports Cage on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM, and watching at sportscage.com.
It's time for the Sports Ticker, brought to you by Extreme Hockey and Sport is the home of the Price Match Guarantee. 1425 McIntyre Street, the Cooperator Center, Moose Jaw Temple Garden Center, and online at extremehockey.net.
And on your Monday Sports Ticker, just a couple of games in the Western Canada Baseball League tonight, including the Regina Red Sox in Saskatoon to face the Berries. And the Red Sox, a half dozen games under 500, and they got to get on the sticks. Still lots of ball left to be played this summer. That game is a 7 o'clock opening pitch at Tom Lang Park in Weyburn. That game in Saskatoon. I was going to mention at Tom Lang Park in Weyburn, the Beavers are home tonight to the Medicine Hat Mavericks. That is also a 7:05 opening pitch. Still don't know who's going to be starting at quarterback for the Hamilton Ticats when they come into Mosaic Stadium on Sunday to face your Saskatchewan Roughriders. Very likely Trey Ford would be the best bet at this stage. Unlikely that they would roll with Jake Del Legala at this point. Remember, Trey Ford has caused all kinds of problems for the Saskatchewan defense in the past, including a game where Edmonton put up 42 points, one of only 3 times that the Corey Mace era has been torched for 40 or more on a game 2 seasons ago at Mosaic Stadium when the Elks left all these hoof prints all over the turf. The ticker is for Extreme Hockey and Sport. Whatever your spring sport is, Extreme Hockey has you covered. Brendan McGuire and Curtis Gammon on this edition of the Sports Cage. Still ahead, we will check in with Darian Durant. I haven't talked with number 4 in forever. Since we started this stream, we haven't done a chit-chat. Boy, we have a lot of good questions to ask him. I'll be really curious to hear what he thinks about how Trevor Harris feels about the Ottawa situation. Because, Trevor, he's pretty honest, but at the same time, he's probably not going to want to give any bulletin board material. But I have to feel like if you've left somewhere, Mosh is distracting me. If you leave somewhere and 7.5 years later, people are talking about how they have not replaced you, that is going to give you about the biggest ego stroke you can get, because that doesn't happen very often. Even when they traded Gretzky from Edmonton, they won a Stanley Cup 2 years later. In a lot of ways, they did replace Gretzky with Mark Messier, who wore the C, and they won a championship. Ottawa has not been quite so fortunate since not bringing back Trevor Harris. But the point I was going to mention, Curtis, is that AJ Yakovic, the radio broadcaster, was on our TV show last week.
Yes.
He says that there are other stories out there that Trevor never wanted to sign there to begin with. And all these years later, he does not have any more clarity on that situation than he did around the time it happened. So AJ has this plan to one day do a 30 for 30 on why Trevor Harris left the Ottawa Red Blacks. Was it as simple as Marcel Desjardins didn't want to come up with the extra $50,000?
It might be. Who knows? But I guess you can always ask the guy. You know what? The question I want to ask Darian is when we were doing the post-game call-in show for the Rider game, we're talking about the record that the Red Blacks have, the 27, 80, and 1. And the 1 is the funny part. We got talking about ties in the CFL, and they're going away pretty quick. But and then we asked Wes, hey, did you ever, because like Wes was pro ties for whatever reason, and Dunk really didn't like ties, so we ended up getting onto the conversation like, hey, do you remember if you've ever played in a tie game?
Now, Wes, Jeremy in Regina was texting us, and we got on to talking about tie games and how you don't hate them, whatever. And then it was interesting because Jeremy and Regina brought up a crazy game between Saskatchewan and Calgary that ended up being, Curtis, what was the final in this one? 44-44, ending in a tie, in Wes Cates' only tie game of his career, and he didn't even remember it.
Apparently I was in a tie game, and apparently I wasn't burned by the tie because, Curtis, do you have the quote?
Yes, here we go. It was October 17th, 2009, 44-44 after overtime. And
overtime, too.
Yeah, interestingly, Cates himself commented after the game and said, to get a tie helps us as Calgary has to come to our place in the final week.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, do I have to do it again and say he was right? I don't want
the tie helped that, like,
no, not with this.
Splitting that game.
Tie ain't it.
That one point gave us what we needed to do what we had to do.
The win would have gave you what you were trying to do.
Yeah, the win. But a tie was enough, and for some reason I feel like we were lucky to get the tie. Like the ball bounced our way a couple times at the end. Maybe, but whatever.
It was super memorable too. He just remembered it off the dome, like couldn't forget the tie. It was that important to him.
At least we know his opinion hasn't changed.
Yeah, I get it's weird some of the stuff I remember and don't. Whatever. Pray for me, y'all.
Man.
Okay, here's the situation. Wes and I are almost exactly the same age.
Yeah.
And the year that we were born doesn't quite fit in with Generation X. I think the Generation Xers were born after the baby boomers. And we don't quite fit in with the millennials. We're kind of our own thing. And I am in lockstep with Wes on this. Ties never bothered me. You get a point, I get a point. Everybody moves on. And you know what it does, Curtis? It whets the appetite for the next time we go head to head. If you meet a team and you tie them twice, I don't know if that's ever happened in the regular season, boy, does that get people frothing at the mouth to see what will happen in the playoffs.
That particular tie did have really big implications because they were both tied for first and West at the time, and that tie kept them tied. So they both were 8-6-1 after that 44-44 tie. October 19th, 2009.
And I know for a fact that the Riders finished in first place that year. And that was, I think, their only first place. That was their first place finish in 33 years, Curtis.
It's pretty good.
And I'm just looking it up here, but in that playoff game, I remember they played Calgary at home and beat them, and the weather was perfect. We always think that in November you can't play. We were lucky. There was like virtually no wind, and the weather was nice for a Sunday night and the playoff game against the Calgary Stampeders. So a tie was just fine for the Roughriders at that time, and it did not satisfy the impulses of those millennial punks like Dunk and so many others, which is what's eliminating ties. I miss ties. I was telling you, I miss National League Baseball rules. I miss ties.
Yeah.
When everything was right with the world.
So either way, I'm kind of curious to see if Darian remembers this game, because he had quite the showing that night. He had, he went for...
He had Fantus. He was dropping bombs to Fantus, probably to Getzlaff. Getzlaff always owned that park at McMahon Stadium. Nobody will be more sad when they tear down McMahon Stadium than Chris Getzlaff.
Oh, yeah. He always showed out in Calgary. But, yeah, see, here. Sorry,
Rob Bagg.
I got the stats here. So that game, he went 35 for 45, 427 passing yards, and 2 TDs. So he had a good game for that tie game, so I'm hoping he remembers.
Some of the best games have been ties. My favorite, I'll throw one at you, and this is very few people remember this, but Henry Burris's first year in Saskatchewan. This is when they totally ripped it all apart. Like cleaned house after the 99 season. The team had gone 3-15. It had mostly aged out. And so they had 9 rookies starting on defense, and the team really struggled those first 3 games, I want to say. I think it was week 4. And Roy Shiver said, I promise everybody that game against Calgary, I don't know if he guaranteed a win, but that's going to be a great game, and people kind of rolled their eyes. That ended up, it was either 51-51 or 54-54, but it went to double overtime, and it ended in a draw, and it was amazing to watch because it was like a 12-round boxing match where we took their best, we gave them our best, and at the end of the night, there was a mutual respect that went both ways. So, to me, that's another one for the ties. I don't think most of our audience wants to see any more ties and is probably fine with whatever would have happened if that overtime in Calgary had continued in that victory a couple of weeks ago. Time to break. Still ahead, hour 3, we will check in with Darian Durant and also the WCBL Regina Red Sox Report with Dante DeCaria. You're listening to the Sports Cage on 620 CKRM and watching at sportscage.com. We are here with Crofty from Croft Electric, and I wanted to ask you, what did you think about that football game on Friday night?
Well, it was a great game, which actually is a great segue because at home, I had no power, so I was listening to CKRM through the app, so I didn't get to watch a lot of the game. It sounds bad coming from an electrician that has a Generac sales division that I don't have a generator at my place yet. So I will be putting one in so I can make sure I catch Rider games. Because I mean, not that we don't like listening to Rider games on RM, but it was kind of bad that I couldn't watch.
And another good reason to be reaching out to Croft Electric and make sure that you are well set up so that you are not found in the same predicament that Crofty was during that game on Friday night. What's going on this week?
Well, we got lots going on. We want all our customers to still think about joining that preferred customer program. We just updated our website. There is actually a link on the Contact Us page now to specifically join that preferred customer program. There's a little header at the top as well that gives you all the information on that on our beautiful website. So that's great. We got that done last week. Actually, I think you guys Harvard helped us out with that as well. So you guys are just awesome to help us out.
That's what we do at Harvard Media. And I was going to say, if I just want to get a hold of you directly, where do I go?
The best way to get a hold of us, during business hours is 306-586-1333. There's like we just talked about on the website, there's some contact us stuff on there. You can book a quote, you can book an actual service call. You can upload pictures right through our website, not onto our website. That'll come into Amy, and Amy will get you all booked in. If you're looking at our website this time of day. Our preferred customers would get the 24-hour phone number as well. So if you do have a problem like I did on Friday, and it isn't a SAS Power issue and you need us to come out, the preferred customers do get access to that 24-hour number as well. So that's another great reason to join that program. But yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of us. Well, as well, follow us on all the socials so that we can keep you up to date on the fun Fridays and Tip Tuesdays and great stuff like that.
I'm glad you brought that up. We always think we don't need a 24-hour number until we do. So I'm glad that you pointed that out to everybody. Do it once, do it right. Croft Electric. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds great. Have a great show, boys.
Awesome. Okay. That is Crofty. And I know I need to get in touch with him. The wife wants the pot lights set up around the yard, and I suspect that I'm not alone. Time to break. Still ahead, Hour 3 with Darian Durant and Dante DeCaria. You're listening to the Sports Cage on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM, and watching at sportscage.com. Brendan McGuire and Curtis Gammon driving the Ferrari on this Monday. This Sports Cage for Keln Solar. And still ahead on this edition of the program, we will check in with Dante DeCaria with the Regina Red Sox. Maybe talk a little bit of Pats, too. I was giving him a hard time because he wasn't giving anybody the scoop on who the new head coach would be. But now that the dust has settled and things have changed, we know who's in place for the 2026-27 season. We'll see what Diamond Dante can tell us about that situation. If you have any questions for Darian Durant or Dante DeCaria, you can always text us 306-936-6262. Prairie Land Rentals and Sales since 1986 for big or small jobs. Stop in and deal with the owner at 600 Albert Street. Let's get to Double Talk.
It's time for Double Talk with Saskatchewan Roughrider legend Darian Durant. Double Talk is brought to you by Dutch Agriculture. Precision in every pass and consistent depth and better yield. Visit DutchOpeners.com. On farm for you.
And former Saskatchewan Roughrider quarterback Darian Durant joins us now. And Darian, usually I don't like to let Curtis ask any questions. I kind of like to hog the guests to myself. But since I just emptied out the coffee pot, and I think he's a little bit sour about it, I guess we'll let him jump in for a little bit. He wanted to ask you about something that happened in 2009 and about these rules. And we'll just let him ask the question so he can get off my back.
Okay. So, Darian, do you recall ever playing in a tie game?
I do not. I cannot remember.
You know what? That is something you have in common with one of your former teammates. Wes Cates also doesn't remember playing in a tie game, but here, I'm just going to roll the clip here, and hopefully it jogs your memory.
Now, Wes, Jeremy in Regina was texting us, and we got on to talking about tie games and how you don't hate them, whatever. And then it was interesting because Jeremy and Regina brought up a crazy game between Saskatchewan and Calgary that ended up being, Curtis, what was the final in this one? 44-44, ending in a tie in Wes Cates' only tie game of his career, and he didn't even remember it.
Apparently I was in a tie game, and apparently I wasn't burned by the tie because, Curtis, do you have the quote?
Yes, here we go. It was October 17th, 2009, 44-44 after overtime. And
overtime, too.
Yeah, interestingly, Cates himself commented after the game and said, "To get a tie helps us as Calgary has to come to our place in the final week."
Mm-hmm.
Justin, do I have to do it again and say he was right? I don't want
the tie helped that.
No, not with this.
Splitting that game.
Tie ain't it.
That one point gave us what we needed to do what we had to do.
The win would have gave you what you were trying to do.
Yeah,
the win.
But the tie was enough, and for some reason I feel like we were lucky to get the tie. Like the ball bounced our way a couple times at the end, maybe. But whatever.
It was super memorable too. He just remembered it off the dome. Like couldn't forget the tie. That was that important to him.
At least we know his opinion hasn't changed.
Yeah, I get it's weird some of the stuff I remember and don't. Whatever. Pray for me, y'all.
Man.
Yeah, so in other contexts, we're kind of arguing about ties, whether they're important or not. So, but yeah.
I feel bad I don't remember that. And I'm with Cates on that one. I guess we played in so many games and maybe we took a couple bumps against the head and we can't remember some of them, but I really don't remember. I'm with Cates on that one, but at least we got the tie, and like you said, it gave us the home field advantage. So, big time for us.
I miss ties, and I'll never get over them. You get a point, I get a point. Everybody's happy, but whatever. I guess the world just has to keep on turning. I wanted to get your thoughts on Trevor Harris and what his mindset must be. Most of us fantasize that if our employer does us wrong, that the place will fall apart if we leave, that we are just so important to that office place or football team or wherever it is. And often the fantasy does not match reality. Quite often I might leave my job and I am stunned to see that my employer just keeps carrying on and everything is just fine. In Trevor Harris's case, the Ottawa Red Blacks have had a dismal record since he left. You can see it on the screen, 27, 80, and 1. They've had, 13 different starting quarterbacks since he left. Now, I suspect if we were to go and ask Trevor, how does it feel to know that you really were irreplaceable? I don't know that he's going to give us any bulletin board material. What do you think he is thinking inside?
Man, inside, he's loving it, right? Anybody, as a competitor, anytime you're let go, anytime an organization doesn't believe that, especially at the quarterback position, man, they believe that they can do better without you, that, they can go out and find a guy, and it's just easy to replace a 70 to 75% completion percentage quarterback. I'm sure he loves seeing them struggle. And I'll say the same about a couple other organizations he's been to. But at the same time, I mean, he's developed great relationships with people in the front office, former teammates of his. So I'm sure he wants the best for them. But whenever a guy is released, man, you want to get to the other team. You want them to be miserable. You want them to not have the type of success that they had when you were there. So, he's such a strong-minded guy. I'm sure he doesn't think about it too much, but when you bring things like this to his attention, I'm sure in the back of his head, he's kind of smiling a little bit for sure.
How could he not be? That's what I'm always thinking. But sometimes you don't get the full story, at least till he's done playing, maybe. But I was going to ask you, he's playing at such a high level where he really is the ultimate completion percentage guy and the ultimate quick release guy. Was there, I know you had some overlap with Trevor in his playing career, but he was not a starter. He was more of a backup type guy with the Argos and then later with Ottawa. Do you remember a quarterback who made you think, he's like Trevor Harris today? Was there a Trevor Harris-like guy that you had to go against in your heyday quarterbacking the Saskatchewan Roughriders that you can think of?
Well, I mean, I compare him to Ricky Ray. I think when you look at Ricky Ray and his ability to dissect defenses, they don't have the biggest arms in the world, so they use major anticipation. They know where their guys are going to be. I look at them two as not kind of similar, but very similar in what they're able to do. They both will pay. Ricky played such a long time and Trevor will play a long time because they're so accurate, because they have a command of offenses and they're just so accurate, man. So Ricky Ray is the first guy that comes to mind, when it comes to just being able to be a field general and just being able to put the ball where you want to put it each and every play.
And that would make so much sense because he did play behind Ricky in Toronto. So I'm kind of surprised I didn't think of that to begin with. So that makes perfect sense. Yeah. When I watch these two teams play on Friday night, and we're seeing one team that, yes, they're coming off a loss in Saskatchewan at 2-1, but they're the defending champions. They're probably not lacking that much confidence. Then you look at Ottawa. We showed their dismal record that they've had for so many years. They started the year 0-3, and Ottawa jumps out to a quick 10-0 lead. They're going great gangbusters, and then one bad thing happens. And it kind of feels like the rock starts rolling downhill. Now, you've played on some really good teams and a few not so good teams. Is it a mental thing at that point? Just the fragility of the confidence of the team that you have that, okay, let's not freak out here when something goes bad. Is that maybe something that Ottawa's just lacking right now because they've had so much losing?
Yeah, 100%. I think whenever you lose, and you're losing tough games, right? You're playing teams tough, but you just can't seem to figure out you're not able to pinpoint what's going wrong. And then you jump out. You get ecstatic. You're up 10-0 against the defending champs. You have them in your house. You're just full of excitement. You think everything is going to go your way. And then you fumble a punt return. Riders jump on it. Momentum changes. Different plays happen. And then of course, you're going to say, here we go again, or, we can't get over the hump. These are things that creep into your mind all the time when you can't seem to be able to shake that losing tendency, and Ottawa's definitely going through that. I think in order to break that, though, because they have such a strong-minded head coach and a guy in Ryan Dinwiddie who's been a winner, who's won Grey Cups, who's been in tough situations, I think he'll be able to get them together. They show so many flashes, and I think they'll be able to show some plays from this game against the defending champs and just let each other know that, hey, we were right there with these guys. We jumped out on them. We forced Trevor to make, his lowest percentage game of the season so far, 18 for 31. So they forced the Riders to punt. They did some good things defensively. Now it's just all about putting it together. So luckily they have a great coach who has the mentality of, he's never going to give up. And I think they can turn that around because of their head coach.
Do you think the players in that locker room, when he's calling players out, and he hasn't done too much of that, but when he has to do that, do you think that they will support him and buy in more just because of the wins he has to his name, as opposed to, say, if it was a rookie coach or a coach who doesn't have the same track record he does?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Dinwiddie's shown that he can win no matter where his stops are. He's a great offensive play caller, and he's a fiery guy, a former quarterback, my former teammate. He's just full of fire. So players respect coaches who've been in the trenches before, who've been through tough situations, and who have made their way out. So it definitely means more coming from a guy who has that experience. And like I said, I feel like Ottawa's right there. They're a couple plays away from having a different record. And like I said, they'll be showing some of the positive things from these losses in order to move forward, just to show that they can play with pretty much anybody in the league.
I hope they pick it up too, because I love that sweet R thing, and I want it to go well for them. And but I was going to also ask you about the Roughriders, the team that we really care about, and their game coming up on Sunday against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. First of all, you played against Bo Levi Mitchell and suffered a pretty scary-looking injury, and we hope that he's okay. But it makes me wonder, at age 36, I don't know that I can think of too many quarterbacks who have come back from a broken ankle. We don't know that it's a broken ankle. That's a lot of just speculation at this point. I don't know. Do you have a thought on his chances of coming back at this stage of his career after suffering such a debilitating injury like that?
Well, the good thing for Bo, and I don't want to say good thing because I'm sure he wishes he was a lot more mobile, but him being more so of a pocket quarterback, you don't rely on your legs so much. You don't have to have, the escapability that some of the other guys rely on. So that's a positive in this case. Now, if it's just a clean break, there's no ligament damage, there's nothing more than the doctors have informed us, especially to the public, then I think he'll be fine. I mean, these guys, technology these days, doctors are so smart. They're just putting guys back together. 36 used to be pretty much a death sentence for guys if you got hurt at that age. But I think with today's technology and, just Bo's style of play, he'll be fine. He's just throwing the ball all around the field. He's having one of his best years to start so far, coming off of an MOP season. So I really, really think that if it's just a clean break and it's a pretty smooth rehab, then he'll definitely be back.
he probably gets a little bit of inspiration from the guy who's quarterbacking the Roughriders, who's not really known to be a super mobile guy either, and was able to come back. He suffered the injury age 37 going into 38, so maybe that will give Bo a little bit of the inspiration he needs.
They actually did do a statement on their social media for the Hamilton
what do we got?
Tigers.
What did the Ticats say about all this?
Underwent successful ankle surgery this morning and is in good spirits. Expect him to make a full recovery. Hopefully we can see Bo again.
But what it doesn't say is the significance of the injury. It just says successful surgery, right? Ligaments are a lot longer rehab process. It takes a lot longer to heal, but clean breaks, like I said, it's a pretty smooth 6 to 8 week process. So we'll see how it goes.
That would be sweet if he could be back even by the end of the season. And obviously, I think we're all more concerned about just his health and his ability to be a football player. But the quarterback play has been so good this year, we'd hate to see it end on injuries like that. I wanted to get your thoughts about the matchup. Next week, we're probably going to see the Cats come in here with Trey Ford as the number one guy, barring any other decisions with the coaching staff. And what's interesting to me about Trey Ford, it's on paper, that's a mismatch. The Cats coming in here. But Trey Ford has had some really successful games at Mosaic Stadium. And it seems like if there is a blueprint to beat a Corey Mace defense, it's to have a quarterback who can run all over the place. And some of the Rider defenders sort of admitted that when Edmonton came here last year, they had just switched to Fajardo for lots of good reasons, but that maybe Trey Ford would have created more mismatches for them. Does that reason alone maybe make this look like a trap game for Saskatchewan, given the fact that on paper it looks like a mismatch, but facing Trey Ford, it is not a mismatch?
Yeah, you made a great point there. Trey has had a lot of success playing in Saskatchewan. The crowd won't be a factor. And like you said, the way the Riders play defense, the off man covers, the off zone, it for quarterbacks who can hold the ball, who can run around and buy time, it is definitely makes it a lot easier for guys to come open down the field. I think you saw that in Edmonton. And if the Riders come with the same game plan, I think you'll see Trey try to extend plays with his legs to try to allow the big play to happen downfield. And that's usually when it happens when guys are in zone, they're looking in the backfield. You usually play on the timing, right? DBs usually break on footballs with the timing being feeling like the defensive lineman can get there in a certain amount of time. But when you're playing against a guy like Trey Ford and, there's no sack that he can't escape from, he's very dangerous against a defense like this. So, the Riders definitely have their work cut out for him this week. And, like I said before, and you as well, he's had a lot of success playing in Saskatchewan. And, I think that the Riders have to be well prepared and don't let this be a trap game for them.
Put up the mouse traps in all the lockers, I guess. But only 3 times has Saskatchewan surrendered 40 or more points in the Corey Mace era, once to Trey Ford. So makes an intriguing matchup coming up for sure. I wanted to get your thoughts on a stat we found through Pro Football Focus that we roll out on the TV show tomorrow, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but essentially it was noticed that first of all, the Roughriders have a much superior record with A.J. Ouellette in the lineup as opposed to without him over that 2+ year period. And it's been observed that Trevor Harris hasn't been sacked much more, but he's been hurried a lot more since A.J. Ouellette has been out of the lineup. Most of us fans don't understand what a running back does other than the stats that we see, the carries, the yards per carry, the touchdowns, but we don't see what they do in pass protection, how they pick up schemes, all the rest of it. How big of a difference does it make for Trevor Harris to run that offense when he's got a new running back who's kind of learning things, as opposed to an old warhorse like A.J. Ouellette who knows how to block?
Yeah, well, the newer guys, they're not used to all the different complex looks that defenses can give you. And I think the major factor when AJ's in the game and why Trevor doesn't take as many hits is because AJ's so good at seeing if an offensive lineman is beat by a defensive lineman. He's able to get a chip in there. He's able to kind of dissect what's going on, not necessarily from a guy that's blitzing, but from what's happening with the front four. So you definitely, it helps for sure to have a vet in there. But when he can't play, you need these younger guys to get these reps. He needs to be in the meeting room along with Andrew Harris with these younger guys so they can kind of tip them off to some of these things that are happening up front. So I think with Conley, he's getting a lot of experience. He's doing everything he needs to do in a positive way. But when you have a guy, in there who's seen everything, a veteran of the league, then he's definitely there to help the offensive lineman take that pressure off Trevor as well.
Did you have an A.J. Ouellette in your career?
Of course. I had Wes Cates. Wes was just one of the smartest running backs that I've ever been around. Not only could he, tote the rock, he was an excellent receiver as well. He was amazing at knowing where to go, who was blitzing. He would just tap me on my hip sometimes and say, watch out for the Sam linebacker, things like that. Because I was the younger guy at the time, right? Wes was the veteran. I was the new starter. So Wes would definitely tip me off to what's going on with the defense. So, man, it's huge having a veteran back there who knows what's going on and who can tip you to where a blitz may be coming from when you're a younger guy.
Look at us stroking Wes's ego. Nobody's going to be able to talk to him at all now. You and Wes played when men were men, and we had ties. I miss ties. We need to bring back ties. Hey, this is, there's the game that we were talking about. This was the game that you guys should have won if it hadn't been for that bad penalty they gave John Chick when they called him for roughing the passer, but that's here nor there. That would be an ejection now with the way they've changed the rules. Hey, this has been a lot of fun, Darian, and we can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.
Okay, that is Double Talk with Darian Durant here on the Monday edition of the Sports Cage. Still ahead here in Hour 3, we will check in with Dante DeCaria for the Regina Red Sox WCBL report. You're listening to the Sports Cage on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM, and watching at sportscage.com. Brendan McGuire and Curtis Gammon on this Monday Sports Cage, and rehashing the Saskatchewan Roughriders' 27-22 victory in Ottawa. And what a football game that was. And the quarterback play has been so much fun to watch. I wonder, I love to compare the quarterbacks from different eras. And one thing I didn't do a very good job of asking Darian about is how would he fit in this era against these quarterbacks? But they had a pretty good group when he was around too, especially with him and Kilvio were the two, and Henry Burris.
What was one thing we kind of mentioned earlier in the show that I kind of forgot about would have been a good talking point with him? Was the amount of pass attempts that Vernon Adams has done without an interception.
We forgot about that,
Yeah, but here, you like a little trivia, Brendan? I
like a little trivia, Curtis. Lay it on me. Let's go.
So, who would be Vernon Adams wouldn't crack the top 5 currently for most consecutive pass attempts without throwing a pick. Who would be in that top 5?
Read that one more time.
So, Vernon Adams currently, he's sitting at, I did the math here, 203 consecutive pass attempts without throwing an interception.
Yep.
That would not crack the top 5 for CFL history.
But it's close.
It's close.
Yeah.
But who would be on that top 5 list?
Who would be on that top 5 list? I would pick someone like Ron Lancaster or Ken Austin, but the truth is those guys were gunslingers and they threw a lot of picks, so I don't think they'd be anywhere near that.
They weren't very good with the stats back then too, so it's not on the list. Not on the list, Ron Lancaster.
Okay, so who's in the top 5? Is Darian Durant on the list?
He is number 1 at 323.
Okay, so he is number 1. You want me to fill out the top 5?
Yeah, give it a guess. It's a fun game.
Ricky Ray?
Number 2 at 247.
Okay. And then Trevor Harris?
Yes, he is on the list. He's number 5 at 218.
Number 5. Okay, so we're missing number 3 and 4. Oh, another one I'll throw, Jason Moss.
Jason Moss, not on the list.
Okay, Jason Moss used to have crazy records for consecutive completions. Like he started a game once, I think, with 22 straight completions. But completions and interceptions are not the same thing, and or avoiding interception are not the same thing. And usually, if you're completing the ball a lot, you're probably getting intercepted a lot. So it's really hard to, you know what I mean, have a high completion and no interception like Trevor Harris does. Anthony Calvillo, is he on the list?
Not on the list.
Danny Barrett?
No.
Matt Dunnigan?
No.
Tracy Ham?
No.
Damon Allen? Tom Burgess? Ricky Foggy?
No.
Can I buy a vowel?
DD.
Darian Durant.
Oh, no, Dave Dickinson.
Oh, okay, the other DD. Okay.
The other DD. 235 for Dave Dickinson.
That doesn't surprise me. I should have guessed that.
And you know what? I'll just
of
round out the list for you. Mike Riley got 224.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I forgot about him. He was a pretty good quarterback in his day with Edmonton. Not so much with BC. He was he was never any good with BC. He came into the league with BC as a nobody and looked like a nobody. Went to Edmonton, got just pounded by their terrible offensive line, but eventually got it together and became a somebody, and then went back to BC and once again played like a nobody. But that's what I remember about. Well, he had been beat up so bad. I hate to make light of it. I think he had just taken such a pounding that he aged out pretty quickly.
Yeah, but despite not cracking the top 5, Vernon Adams, so he's sitting at 203 pass attempts without a pick currently. If he can throw 15 more pass attempts without throwing a pick, ties Trevor Harris. And if he throws more than that, he'll surpass him and he'll crack the top 5, cement himself in CFL history. In that
Vernon
regard.
Adams. Wow, look at that. So he's having his best year.
Yeah.
So far, I mean, we're 4 games in. Let's not get carried away.
Yeah.
He was an MOP candidate a few years ago with BC before Nathan Rourke came back.
That is true. And to be honest, like, if he does keep playing like that, like I see the Stamps being the number 1 in the West. Hot take, but hot take in Rider Nation.
Oh, finishing first. Yeah. You know what? I think that their fortunes rely on him definitely, but I've long believed that their fortunes rely on those 2 defenders. And you know, I sound like a broken record every week when we do the picks on the TV show, because when they have Jalen Hutchings and Folarin Oromalati both in the lineup, their record is just about unbeatable. Like people forget the Rough Riders won a Grey Cup last year by beating every team in the league except Calgary. They lost to the Stampeders twice. Played them toe to toe, but couldn't. Were clearly. I don't want to say overmatched, but we're clearly not the superior team on both of those days. And we can't accept any excuses about the smoke clearing them out of the stadium on the Friday night and they had to play the next day. If anybody is going to be at a disadvantage in that situation, it's going to be the road team because it messes with their travel plans and everything else. And then in the other game they played at McMahon Stadium, it was a really good game till the half, and then they just got steamrolled in that second half. So I don't know how beatable Calgary is if those 2 guys are healthy and on their game. But I think the point you're making is maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe 1 or 2 of those guys can be injured, and maybe now they can still win with the level that Vernon Adams Jr. has ascended to with all the time that he has had in the offense. That's another thing we haven't talked a lot about, is that Saskatchewan's offense is clicking at a high rate because they've all been together for 3 years, some of them longer.
Yeah, it's injuries can derail, like any team can have their season derailed in an instant. So it's hard to make bold statements this early in the season because you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I do like Calgary right now. That's for sure. But I think I'm kind of done talking CFL for the day. I think we got to take a break and we're going to get
Diamond Dante on?
Diamond Dante on the line after the break.
Ask him when we're going to get pitch clocks. When we come back, we will have the WCBL report and talk about the Regina Red Sox and the Regina Pats. You are listening to the Sports Cage on the Voice of Saskatchewan 620 CKRM and watching at sportscage.com.
It's time for the Sports Ticker, brought to you by Steelcraft Doors Regina, made in Western Canada for Western Canadians.
Well, the Blue Jays are back tonight on the West Coast. People who have things to do after work will actually get to watch the Blue Jays tonight because they're playing late Pacific time. That will be a 7:45 opening pitch. Kevin Gausman is going to go on the mound against the Giants. Landon Roop the other way for the San Francisco Giants. I used to get excited about these games when they had NL rules, but then that all disappeared and The world just continues to slip through my fingers. Western Canadian Baseball League action tonight. The Regina Red Sox are playing in Saskatoon against the Berries. That is a 7 o'clock opening pitch. And the Weyburn Beavers are home to the Medicine Hat Mavericks. That is also a 7:05 opening pitch at Tom Lang Park. Weyburn and Regina almost neck and neck in the standings. So Regina 5th in the East Division and Weyburn just a half game up on the mighty Regina Red Sox, who we'll talk about momentarily with Dante DeCaria. The sports ticker is for Steelcraft Doors Regina, made in Western Canada for Western Canada.
Showcasing the boys of summer. Time for another edition of the SportsCage Regina Red Sox Report on 620 CKRM. Brought to you by Unifor 594. Energy workers. Putting the care in career since 1942. Safety is our business.
Well, very pleased to be joined on the Western Pizza Hotline by our good friend Diamond Dante DeCaria. Hey, you do a lot of radio broadcasts for hockey, and you hear all those fancy jingles on the commercials. Do you ever get them stuck in your head where you end up singing them?
In the past, yes, but yeah, no, I don't know about that one, Brendan.
Steelcraft doors, dun dun, we offer more, dun 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 dun. You feel me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right, that's all I got. Hey, before we talk about the Red Sox, thanks a lot for not giving me the scoop on who the new Regina Pats head coach was. I really expected you'd come through and leak that out for us, and it just didn't happen. It seemed like it was the best kept secret. And I get a lot of questions. Who is this guy from down east? And, maybe when I was younger and not so thoughtful, I might have not liked the idea that they didn't go with somebody local. But they did bring Dante DeCaria from down east. And things have worked pretty good with the Moose Jaw Warriors. They hired Stuthers from down east, who brought along O'Leary, and I think things have gone pretty good for the Moose Jaw Warriors. So maybe it's just a good thing that they're getting the cream of the crop from all around Canada.
Yeah, and to answer your first question, Brendan, I actually didn't know who the head coach of the Regina Pats was going to be up until the Friday before the Monday morning announcement. I was in Okotoks, Alberta, at the Dogs Academy tournament. Got to see an Okotoks Dogs and Moose Jaw Miller Express game with my team. It was a really fun tournament, so that was awesome. Was not expecting any sort of announcement at all, so I actually didn't know anything at all. But yeah, to answer your question about Dave, Dave's not only a hockey guy, but he loves baseball as well. His son, in fact, is one of the top young baseball players in Ontario. So looking forward to working with him. Dave and I have had some great conversations about baseball, and he's currently looking to buy a house here in Regina. So that's awesome that he's moving his family out to Saskatchewan. But yeah, I mean, to me, I don't think really it mattered geographically where that person came from for Dale Durkach, Gord Pritchard, and Tristan Fry on the management side of things. I think they were just looking for the best head coach and the best person to lead this team back, obviously, to potentially a deep playoff run in the next year or two. And
I'm really bad for just using first names. David Bell, the new head coach of the Regina Pats, who spent a good whack of time with the American Hockey League's Belleville Senators, the farm team of the Ottawa Senators. And it's almost like, I feel like it's kind of akin to a John Paddock hire, who had a lot of success at the American Hockey League level before coming to Regina, and turned out to be, certainly for a while, an all-star hire for the Regina Pats. It's almost like we're going back to the same well as when John Paddock came around.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up, Brendan. I mean, I don't remember, but I hear stories of when John Paddock was hired as the general manager and head coach of the Pats back in 2014, and he really kind of changed the franchise. And I think Dave Bell is going to be a huge piece of the organization. He brings a ton of experience both at the American Hockey League level and obviously at the OHL level as well. He's somebody that, from what I understand, is a really good communicator, builds really good relationships with the players, their agents, and their families as well. And to me, he's the perfect fit for the Regina Pats. That's not to say that Brad Haroff did not do a good job. I think he brings in a good support staff with Del Pedrick and Terrace McEwen, who were both, hired early or late last week by the Regina Pats. But anytime you can coach close to 10 years or 10 years in the American Hockey League means you're pretty good at your job. So obviously Dave Bell comes well regarded. I had a good conversation with Al Miller this weekend as well at a wedding, Tristan Fry's wedding, actually, in fact, and he spoke very highly of Dave and had never worked with the man before. So also another cool tidbit is he played 4 years under Brian Kilray when he obviously played for the Ottawa 67s and learned a lot from Brian Kilray. Of course, Brendan, one of the best coaches in CHL history. So has been around a lot of good hockey minds, and himself is a very good hockey mind as well.
The Baltimore Ravens of the National Football League had the same head coach for a long time up until this offseason when they parted ways with I almost forgot his name, John Harbaugh. And they brought in a new head coach. And the guy who was the coach before Harbaugh, Brian Billick, did an interview not very long ago who said, it's never good to have the same guy coaching for more than 10 years. All the Ravens are doing here is just kicking the tripod, changing the angle a little bit. Is that maybe what a coaching change does for the Pats or for anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, also you have to remember that the Regina Pats, had a shift in management over the last year. I mean, Al Miller, who hired Brad Haroff a handful of years ago, departed for Hockey Canada, and Tristan Fry was promoted to the assistant GM, and Dale Durkash was promoted from assistant GM to director of hockey operations and general manager. So really felt from listening to Dale's press conference that, he wanted to make a change, felt like there was a new voice needed in the dressing room for this group. And, obviously from what we've seen with a full coaching staff, new coaching staff, that Dale Durkash wanted to make a change and wanted to hire his guys, just like Al Miller did a handful of seasons ago. And Al Miller really didn't make a ton of changes to the coaching staff when he joined the team, other than promoting Brad and at the time hiring, Ivan McFeeters and then Ryan Smith and keeping Ken Schneider along for the last, 2 or 3 seasons. So I think, Dale Durkash wanted to put his fingerprints on the team as well, which is to be expected when you're the GM of the team. I mean, Brad had a year left on his contract, and Dale obviously wanted to see things through with Brad. And considering the change that they made, they felt obviously it wasn't a good fit. And they elected to not renew Brad and Ryan's contract with Ken Schneider retiring. So it was an opportunity for Dale to kind of go to a full clean slate and hire a staff that he wanted, go through the interview process for the first time in his career after inking a head coach, then bringing on 2 assistant coaches that obviously he knows quite well. Terrace McEwen has WHL head coaching experience with Swift Current. He served as an assistant coach under James Patrick with the Winnipeg Ice when they went to the league final a couple of seasons ago. And then Del Pedrick, worked with Dale Durkash at Notre Dame many years ago, back in the late 2010s. And then would it be around 2009, 2010, I believe. And, he's been an assistant coach with the Brandon Wheat Kings for the last 4 seasons before not being renewed this offseason. So 3 really good coaches coming in to join Max Paddock as a goaltending coach. And I think the Pats have a great coaching staff going into this season, that's for sure.
My goodness, Del Pedrick was coaching when I was covering junior, so that's how long he's been around. So interesting mix of young guys and gray hairs, which I guess every staff needs to have. Hey, little bit about the Red Sox. Somebody asked a question. Does the WCBL have a pitch clock? And I explained to them no, but maybe it will come in at some point. Do you have anything to add to that when it might happen? Let's hear it.
Okay, well, so I don't have anything to back this up. I've not talked to Gary. I haven't been at any of the owners' meetings or anything like that. But to me, from what I've gathered from being around the field this year, so the league is obviously run by a lot of people that are still kind of stuck in the old ways, right? And obviously lack of revenue has to do with those things. So I think installing pitch clocks is something that would cost a ton of money. To me, if I would guess, that would be something that holds that back a little bit. Exactly. The dollars, they come up with everything. And it does cost a lot to install. You look at some of the community old franchises such as Moose Jaw, Weyburn, etc. Are they willing to fork up the coin to do that? That remains to be seen. yes, I do think the pitch clock is needed. The games are taking a little bit too long for me. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a damper on the league, but I think what it comes down to as well is that there's so many summer collegiate leagues across North America. There's so many options for these guys to play. And, I feel right now in the sport of baseball in general, the lack of pitching depth is not there. I mean, there's just a lot of guys that know how to throw the baseball but don't know how to pitch, and have a lot of command issues. And a lot of times people ask me, why does a WCBL game take so long? And I say, well, pitchers have the inability to throw strikes consistently. There are guys that can throw strikes, but there are some guys that can't throw strikes at all, Brendan. And that's why you might, see a 3.5, 4.5 hour baseball game. And that's just the way the game is right now. Not a fan of how the game is played in that aspect. I, would like guys to pitch to contact a little bit more, but it's just the way baseball is trending right now. And hopefully we do see a change someday.
I think that we need more, what you're trying to say, and I'll shorten that for you, we need more Dante DeCarias and Dustin Mulliken as pitching coaches in the WCBL, so hopefully we can get on that, and maybe a pitch clock.
It comes down to, it's not even just that, it comes down to a mentality as well. Guys pitching for a strikeout versus pitching for a ground ball, guys pitching for a strikeout versus pitching for a lazy pop-up in the infield or a medium depth fly ball to center field. Guys really care about their strikeout numbers, which is obviously to be expected. That's something a pitcher can control. You can't control if the defense makes a play or not. So that's also just part of it. It's the mentality thing as well. And guys are so focused on velocity that they don't really understand on how to change speeds and how to pitch and, how to hit the corners and pitch up, down, inside, outside.
Guys got to quit worrying about velocity and worry more about wins and getting off the diamond quickly, because your infielder is going to perform a lot better behind you if they're awake, and they're going to be a lot more awake if you have Mark Burley pitching on the hill than some stiff who's just worrying about his velocity. Hey, quickly, what do our Red Sox need to do to get back to the 500 mark here before the I was going to say before the All-Star break, but I think we're past the All-Star break or coming up on it.
Yeah, you're coming up on the All-Star break soon. That's right around the corner. Red Sox have a fairly busy week coming up. You play Saskatoon Berries. They're a good team. They're a division rival. I mean, to me, what's been tough is that, the Red Sox have had a hard time stringing together wins against, Swift Current, which is a team that is battling for, position in the Eastern Division standings right now. And the Red Sox have had difficulty with Weyburn, and obviously Moose Jaw is a good team as well. And you've got some Alberta teams coming up this week. Okotoks is in town on Thursday at Curry Field, and Sunday 2:00 start at Curry Field as well. But the Red Sox have played in 10 one-run ball games this season. They're 1-9 in those one-run ball games. So they need to find a way to win those close games and need to be very consistent. It seems like when the offense is going, they don't get pitching, and when the pitching is going, they don't get offense. They seem to not get both of those aspects at the same time. It kind of reminds me of my U13 baseball team. It seems like the other day we're playing Moose Jaw, and we got two really good pitching performances from two of my kids. To me, their best pitching performances of the season. And then the bats go quiet. And, meanwhile, we go to Swift Current on Saturday and we lose 22-21. And the offense is going, but the pitching isn't going. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Red Sox. I mean, tough to win a game 20-9 on Saturday against Swift Current. And then you squeeze out an 8-4 win against Moose Jaw yesterday, but you lose 8-7. So, got to find a way to be a little bit more consistent. They went 3-3 last week, but Brendan, I think defensively they need to be better. They need more depth on the mound, and the offense just needs to, keep it rolling. They do have some good hitters. I actually do like their offense, but they just need to get some more consistent pitching performances.
I know we're really tight for time, so in under 60 seconds, do we have any clarity what the heck is happening with Energy City Cactus Rats and their ballparks?
I have no idea. I actually haven't been following it quite closely. My brain can only take so much, and I've got so much on my plate with, Pats, ramping up. I've got Red Sox here. I've got, my baseball team as well, and Team Sask tryouts coming up on Wednesday. So, and then Team Sask at the end of the month. So lots going on in my life, and haven't really looked too much into the Energy City stuff.
Well, I'm building a new ballpark, too, out by Kipling, Saskatchewan, for a Major League Baseball franchise, and it'll probably be ready about the same time. The ballpark in Energy City will be ready for the Cactus Rats to welcome people to come and watch. Dante DeCaria, good of you to join us. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your summer if we don't talk again.
Thanks for having me, Brendan. Appreciate it.
Okay, that is Dante DeCaria with the Regina Red Sox and the Regina Pats, and I guess it was a little more of a Pats report than a Red Sox report, but I love visiting with Dante. Usually we talk way more baseball in the wintertime, so it's only fair that I flip it the other way here in the summer. Special thanks to all of our guests who came on the show, of course, Darian Durant, Dante DeCaria, and also Andrew Harris, the running backs coach for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Special thanks to Curtis Gammon and all the hard work.
Oh, thank you, Brendan. I appreciate you coming in on short notice and helping a guy out. I was a little nervous first thing in the morning when Teagan texted me and it's like, I'm not feeling good, and it's like, oh man, today's going to be a long day.
It's been an honor to feel like Matt Stairs and be a pinch hitter extraordinaire. Another reason why I miss the National League rules, but that's a whole other discussion. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You have been listening to the Sports Cage on the Voice of Saskatchewan 620 CKRM and watching at sportscage.com.